Chapter 1957. Peak Heavenly God Realm. The Thunder Fire Sword was extremely fast. In about half a day, it brought Zhuan deep underground. What appeared in front of Zhuan was an incomparably huge sea of lava. However, with his powerful spiritual sense, Zhuan found a palm-sized crystal in the deepest part of the sea of lava. He knew that this was the star core. Zhuan plunged into the sea of lava and rapidly approached the star core. After arriving a few hundred meters away from the star core, Zhuan stopped. Dense stellar energy was being transmitted from the star core. The Brahma Fiend's star wasn't simple. Zhuan didn't dare to take the star core. Once he did, the Brahma Fiend's star would be greatly affected. At that time, he would provoke public anger. Even the void sky experts hidden on this planet might come out. Zhuan wouldn't do such a stupid thing. Zhuan sat cross-legged a few hundred meters away from the star core. The heaven-devouring eye between his eyebrows slowly opened and began to devour the stellar energy emerging from the star core. Zhuan's absorption speed was very slow and gentle. He was afraid that if he absorbed too quickly, he would be discovered by those void sky old monsters. In fact, when Zhuan had entered the depths of the underground, he had already discovered that there was a spying formation here. Moreover, this formation wasn't weak. Therefore, he had been circulating the all-life formless at all times to prevent himself from being discovered by the spying formation. Time passed slowly. Zhuan had stayed here for a year. The density of the stellar energy in the Brahma Fiend star's star core had exceeded Zhuan's expectations. After absorbing for more than a year, he discovered that the stellar energy in the star core had only decreased by about 5%. Thinking of this, Zhuan began to absorb the stellar energy without restraint. As for the spying formation in the depths of the underground, Zhuan had already figured it out. Moreover, other than circulating the all-life formless, Zhuan also had his main body observe the surrounding spying formation. His original body improved very quickly as he continued to learn. He actually managed to become a celestial saint master from a heavenly saint master. Of course, the main reason for this was because his original body had squandered the fire spirit essence to increase his comprehension ability. Now, even though the spying formation deep underground couldn't be broken yet, with the interference of the formless world and the devouring curse seal, it was difficult to detect Zhuan's presence. This continued for another half a year. At this moment, Zhuan was absorbing astral power without restraint. In just half a year, he had absorbed 20% of the astral power in the star core. A deep, beastly roar came from Zhuan's body, and an incomparably berserk aura erupted from Zhuan's body. Zhuan knew that Devour's clone had reached the peak of Heavenly God Realm. Opening his eyes, Zhuan put away his original body and activated formless existence to the extreme. Then he suddenly drilled out of the magma ocean and plunged underground. Zhuan's original body had reached the peak of Demigod Realm. However, as he had yet to refine a planet, he hadn't broken through to the Heavenly God Realm yet. If I refine one of the stars in Devour's body, will I be able to become a Heavenly God Realm expert? Zhuan pondered. In the end, he decided to let his original body refine the star. The star in Devour's body had been refined by Devour, so it was much milder than ordinary stars. Even so, its temperature was still terrifying. Fortunately, his original body had cultivated the indestructible art of heaven and earth in the past 1.5 years. Relying on the heaven and earth mineral vein, his original body had cultivated the indestructible art of heaven and earth to the 3rd level, 1000 June. After all, his original body had a human body and was much smaller than Devour. Although he had cultivated the indestructible art of heaven and earth to the 3rd level, 1000 June, he hadn't used much heaven and earth energy. He had only used 1% of the indestructible art of heaven and earth. At this moment, the body of his original body was extremely terrifying. Although he was a demigod, he didn't suffer much damage when he got close to the star. After his original body sat on the star, Zhuan used Devour's devouring power to surround his original body to prevent the terrifying energy from escaping from the star. Then he let his original body refine the star. Songren City was especially lively today. Many cultivators stood on both sides of the street, looking up to see what was going on. At the end of the street, near the city gate of the Song family, two big crosses were erected. Two women were tied to the crosses. One of the women was delicate and refined, and she was quite pleasing to the eye. The other woman attracted the attention of many cultivators. She was too beautiful. Her facial features were as delicate as a porcelain doll. People wanted to pinch her, but they were afraid that they would break her. Many guards of the Song family stood in front of the city gate. Song Jiahao, the head of the Song family, was sitting in an armchair. His cold eyes stared at the two tied women and asked, "Your god power is sealed. You're like mortals. You've been tied up here for 10 days and 10 nights. Can you endure it? If you don't want to suffer, tell us where that Jun is." Xiao Tong pursed her lips and said coldly, "I'm sorry, but we don't know that Jun. Even if you ask us a few times, we'll still give you the same answer." Yun Chuyu's beautiful eyes were cold. She didn't say anything. After Jun returned to the Song family, the two of them waited in a small town near Songrin City for 3 months. When they found that Jun didn't come looking for them, they returned to Fansha City. They planned to ask around about Jun. Later, they found out that the lockdown of Fansha City had been cancelled. It was said that the Jiang Hong Trading Company's Hong Shan had returned. Yun Chuyu and Xiao Tong naturally knew Hong Shan. They also knew that Hong Shan had been kidnapped by Jun. When they found out that Hong Shan had returned to the Jiang Hong Trading Company, they knew that something might have happened to Jun. However, when they found Hong Shan, they were told that Jun was still in the Song family. As for what he was doing in the Song family, they didn't say. Therefore, the two women returned to the Song family and stayed in Songrin City for a long time. However, there was still no news of Jun. That was until 10 days ago when they were discovered by the subordinates of the Song family in Songrin City. They were recognized and captured by the Song family and hung on the city gate. "My patience is limited." Song Jiahao stretched out his right hand and condensed his divine power into a thick whip. He mercilessly swung it at Xiao Tong's body. A mark appeared on Xiao Tong's clothes on her abdomen. Blood seeped out of her exposed skin. However, Xiao Tong was extremely stubborn. She endured the pain and didn't say a word. "I love stubborn women the most." Song Jiahao laughed sinisterly. He swung his right hand again and again. In an instant, more than a dozen whip marks appeared on Xiao Tong's body. Even her clothes became messy. "Song Jiahao, you're too presumptuous. We are disciples of the Crepe Myrtle sect. Aren't you afraid that the Crepe Myrtle sect will find trouble with you?" Yun Chuyu couldn't stand it anymore and couldn't help but scold him angrily. Song Jiahao laughed and swung his right hand at Yun Chuyu. He laughed and said, "Crepe Myrtle sect? If the Crepe Myrtle sect was still the powerful Crepe Myrtle sect of the past, I might be afraid. Unfortunately, the current Crepe Myrtle sect has been reduced to a second-grade galaxy. Even the life of their sect master is at stake. Why should I care about them?" Song Jiahao's tone showed that he didn't care about the Crepe Myrtle sect at all. This caused Yun Chuyu's beautiful eyes to fill with grief and indignation. She felt a little depressed. Just as Song Jiahao said, the glory of the Crepe Myrtle sect was long gone. They were in a precarious situation. Even the Song family didn't care about the Crepe Myrtle sect. Song Jiahao also saw the depression in Yun Chuyu's eyes. His expression became even more smug. He swung his right hand and the whip was aimed at Yun Chuyu's chest. Yun Chuyu was indeed very beautiful. Especially after the depression in her eyes, there was a kind of delicate and pitiful charm to her. This made Song Jiahao feel an exuberant pleasure of abuse. A trace of lust even rose in his heart. Therefore, he did not hesitate to hit Yun Chuyu's chest. Yun Chuyu also saw Song Jiahao's intention. A trace of humiliation flashed in her beautiful eyes. She closed her beautiful eyes, intending to accept this humiliation. She knew very well that in her current state, she could not resist. Even if she cursed, it would be useless. Therefore, she simply closed her eyes. However, the moment the whip formed from divine power reached her body, it collapsed with a loud bang. Rumble! The ground under Song Jiahao's feet shattered. A black shadow suddenly rushed out, and a flash of sword light quickly slashed toward him. The armchair that Song Jiahao was sitting on was shattered into pieces. Song Jiahao was also caught off guard. Divine power spewed out from his hands to meet the incoming flash of sword light. Swoosh. Unfortunately, this flash of sword light was too swift and fierce. The moment Song Jiahao came into contact with the flash of sword light, he was shattered into pieces. Then, a flash of golden light shot toward Song Jiahao's forehead at an extremely fast speed. Song Jiahao saw that this golden light was a thin needle. He was very familiar with this thin needle. It was the soul-absorbing divine needle that Zhuan had released back then. It's you, Jun. Song Jiahao had only just uttered these words when the golden light was extremely fast. It had already completely sunk into the space between his brows, completely shattering his spirit. Thump. Song Jiahao had only just uttered these words before he completely became a lifeless corpse. The moment he killed Song Jiahao, the black shadow stomped his right foot. The flash of sword light whistled. Yun Chuyu and Xiao Tong, who were originally tied to the cross, felt their bodies become light. Then, they were embraced by a large, gentle hand. Don't struggle. I'll take you out of here. Just as the two women were about to struggle, they heard this low voice. They immediately recognized the owner of this voice. It was Zhuan. The two women revealed a look of joy. However, the two women's beautiful faces quickly turned red. After all, they were carried by Zhuan on both sides of their waists. Needless to say, that posture was extremely embarrassing. However, although the two women were embarrassed, they also knew that this was a special situation. Thus, they allowed Zhuan to carry them. Zhuan carried the two women and immediately spread the torch dragon wings. In an instant, they disappeared from Songren City. As soon as Zhuan left, the entire Songren City was in chaos. This was because the head of the Song family, Song Jiahao, was dead. Moreover, he was instantly killed by a man who suddenly rushed out from the depths of the ground. This man's name was Zhuan. Perhaps, in the next period of time, Zhuan's name would be known by everyone in Songren City. Everyone would know about him. In the depths of a dense forest, Zhuan stopped and put the two women down. Then, his hands landed on the backs of the two women. With a surge of divine power, he released the shackles on the two women. After regaining their freedom, Xiao Tong and Yun Chuyu bowed to Zhuan. However, the two women lowered their heads slightly. Their cheeks were bright red, and they did not dare to look at Zhuan. Chapter 1958. Wu Han and Luo Pengfei, Brother Zhua, were just worried about you so. Xiao Tong said submissively. Yun Chuyu's beautiful eyes were calm as she remained silent. Zhuan nodded. Even if Xiao Tong did not say anything, Zhuan knew that the two women had stayed because of him. Let's go. Let's go to Brahma Fiend City and leave Brahma Fiend Planet through the teleportation array. Zhuan said solemnly. Xiao Tong nodded meekly, but Yun Chuyu suddenly said, Tun, are you really at the peak of the heavenly god realm? Zhuan was startled and looked at Yun Chuyu in surprise. He nodded and said, Yes, I am at the peak of the heavenly god realm. What's wrong? Yun Chuyu bit her lower lip and looked at Zhuan with a complicated expression. The scene of Zhuan killing Song Jiahao with just a few moves was still vivid in her mind. Although she was also at the peak of the heavenly god realm, she could barely fight against an ordinary one-disaster true god. However, this young man in front of her had killed a three-disasters true god. This was too abnormal. Moreover, in the 1 year that she had spent in Song Renqing, Yun Chuyu had heard many things about Zhuan. Back then, Yun had not escaped from Song Yan's hands. Instead, after killing 4 true gods, including Song Yan, he had openly left right under Song Jiahao's nose. Thinking about Zhuan's terrifying strength, Yun Chuyu could only feel her heart beating wildly. She knew that with Zhuan's help, perhaps their crepe myrtle sect could really rise again. After all, Zhuan was still so young and his realm was not very high. Can you join our crepe myrtle sect? Yun Chuyu asked expectantly. Zhuan glanced at Yun Chuyu. He knew what Yun Chuyu was thinking. He shook his head and said, Sorry, I don't plan on joining any force. I only have one goal, and that is to go to Waning Crepe. Yun Chuyu's beautiful eyes focused, but she was not discouraged. She continued, I heard junior sister Xiao say that you want to go to Waning Crepe for the sun moon grass, right? This thing is extremely rare. Even if you go in, you may not be able to find the sun moon grass. But in our crepe myrtle sect long ago, there was a heaven's pride that obtained a stalk of sun and moon grass in the waning moons, and there were records of the location where he obtained the sun and moon grass. Zhuowen's expression changed, then somewhat excitedly asked, "Your crepe myrtle sect has records of the location of the sun and moon grass." But soon, Zhuowen calmed down. He looked at Yunqiu and continued, "Let's change the conditions. I don't want to become a disciple of your crepe myrtle sect. There are too many restrictions and I don't like it." Yunqiu gritted her teeth and said, "You can become a guest elder of our crepe myrtle sect. We will not restrict you." After some time, the Great Brahma Domain will hold a galactic tournament to determine the grade of the galaxy. The sect leader of our crepe myrtle sect is seriously injured, and it is impossible for him to recover before the galactic tournament. Moreover, in the past thousands of years, the crepe myrtle sect has not produced any outstanding genius. In order to maintain the status of a second-grade galaxy, I need your help." Zhuowen nodded. It seemed that Yunqiu had invited him to join the crepe myrtle sect because of this matter. It seemed that Yunqiu had thought that Zhuowen had the ability to kill True God 3 disasters, which was why she had invited him so strongly. Besides, Zhuowen really did need the records of the location of the sun and moon grass. After all, Waning Crepe Myrtle sect was an unfamiliar place to him, and it was full of dangers. In addition, the sun and moon grass was extremely rare, and whether he could find it was still unknown. If there were records of the location of the sun and moon grass, his chances of obtaining the sun and moon grass would be greatly increased. It is said that in order to use the transmission array in the core star field of the Daffin domain, one must be a member of a force in the star field or a cultivator who has settled down in the star field. Is that true? Zhuowen asked again. That is true, but ultimately, it is because the disciples of the forces in the star field all have the corresponding transmission tokens. Back in the day, the Crepe Myrtle sect was also one of the 100 great sects in the star field, and the sect also had such transmission tokens, but there are not many left. If you can help the Crepe Myrtle sect this time, I am willing to give you the remaining transmission tokens in the Crepe Myrtle sect, Yun Chuyu said hurriedly. Hearing this, Zhuowen's gaze turned solemn. He nodded and agreed to Yun Chuyu's request. After all, he was a newcomer and did not know much about the Daffin domain. Although the Crepe Myrtle sect had declined, it was once one of the 100 great sects in the core star field of the Daffin domain, so it definitely knew more than him. Joining the Crepe Myrtle sect was not a bad thing. Moreover, he was only a guest elder and not a disciple of the Crepe Myrtle sect. He was not bound by the Crepe Myrtle sect, so he could still accept this. Seeing Zhuowen nod, Yun Chuyu smiled. Zhuowen could not help but be stunned. Thank you. When I return to the Crepe Myrtle sect this time, I will report your matter to the sect leader. I think the sect leader will agree with my suggestion. Yun Chuyu also saw the stunned look in Zhuowen's eyes. She was very clear about her own charm. Generally, other male cultivators would be stunned when they saw her. She had long been used to such expressions. However, when Zhuowen looked stunned, she was secretly delighted. After all, Zhuowen was different from other ordinary cultivators. She had never seen a peak heavenly god who could kill an ordinary true god of 3 disasters. Even the monstrous geniuses of the 10 most powerful sects in the Daffin domain might not necessarily be able to do so. Since ancient times, beauties loved heroes. Yun Chuyu naturally did not think highly of ordinary cultivators, but in her heart, Zhuowen had already been classified as a monstrous genius of the 10 great sections. In addition, she had a good impression of Zhuowen. Naturally, she was secretly delighted that Zhuowen was stunned by her beauty. Zhuowen came back to his senses and nodded. Let's return to Brahma Fiend City first. Although Yun Chuyu was beautiful, Zhuowen was only stunned and admiring her. He did not have any improper thoughts. After all, his heart was not here. As he spoke, Zhuowen led Yun Chuyu and Xiao Tong away from this place. After entering Brahma Fiend City, Zhuowen's group of 3 walked straight to the teleportation array. However, they met an uninvited guest at the teleportation array. Hong Shan. Zhuan narrowed his eyes and stared coldly at the red-robed lady standing beside the teleportation array. However, Zhuowen's main attention was focused on the green-robed elder beside Hong Shan. This elder was about 70 years old. He was full of energy and his face was glowing. The aura on his body was as vast as the sea. This person was definitely a void sky expert. The owner of the Jianghong Trading Company, Wu Han. Yun Chuyu said with a pale face. Xiao Tong's expression was also extremely ugly. They did not expect that the void sky expert of the Jianghong Trading Company, Wu Han, would come. This time, they would not be able to leave. Hong Shan chuckled and slowly walked in front of Zhuan. She sized up Zhuan and said, "Little man, why are you in such a hurry to leave? Don't you want to say goodbye to me before you leave?" Zhuan said coldly, "Miss Hong Shan, we don't seem to be that close, right? Moreover, I have given you a lot of fire spirit juice and black yellow or vein. I think we don't owe each other anything." Seeing Zhuowen's cold attitude, Hong Shan's beautiful eyes froze, and her heart felt empty. She then looked at Yun Chuyu and Xiao Tong, who were standing beside Zhuowen, and said with a smile, "Now that I have two beauties by my side, this little man," Hong Shan wanted to continue but was immediately interrupted by Zhuan. "What do you want to say? Just say it. I am in a hurry." Hong Shan's delicate body trembled and her beautiful eyes reddened. She said angrily, "You don't want to talk to me?" As she spoke, Hong Shan walked to the old man's side in a fit of pique and ignored Zhuan. Wu Han glanced at Hong Shan and shook his head helplessly. This was the first time he saw Hong Shan in such a sorry state in front of a man. "You are Zhuowen, right? As for the matter of you kidnapping my granddaughter, I will not hold it against you. This time, I am here on behalf of the Jianghong Trading Company to invite you to join our company. As long as you join our Jianghong Trading Company, you will immediately receive the treatment of an elder," Wu Han said with a smile. Zhuan was startled. Just as he was about to refuse, loud laughter suddenly rang out. A group of people walked over from behind Zhuan. The leader of the group was a robust middle-aged man. Zhuan was familiar with the black-clothed man beside the middle-aged man. He was the leader of the group that led the convoy out of Fansha City. "Wu Han, you are really unkind. You actually secretly recruited people behind my back." The middle-aged man walked with a majestic gait and came in front of Zhuan. He looked at Zhuan with a burning gaze. "Luo Pengfei, what do you mean by coming uninvited?" Wu Han snorted coldly. Zhuan sized up the middle-aged man in front of him. The moment he saw the black-clothed man, he had already guessed the middle-aged man's identity. He was the owner of the dazzling light trading company, Luo Pengfei. "Not bad. It seems like your cultivation has improved since a year ago." "Zhuan, I am the owner of the dazzling light trading company, Luo Pengfei. I wonder if you are willing to join our dazzling light trading company? In order to express my sincerity, these things will be our meeting gift for joining our trading company." As he spoke, Luo Pengfei took out a storage bag and handed it to Zhuan. Zhuowen casually looked through it and realized that there was a total of 50 million god stones, a stock of level 6 divine medicine, a dozen stocks of level 5 divine medicine, and an upper-grade true god weapon level divine sword. Wu Han's divine sense was extremely powerful. The instant Zhuowen opened the storage pouch, he also noticed the contents of the storage pouch. He cursed in his heart and hurriedly took out the storage pouch he had prepared beforehand. He smiled and said, "Zhuowen, in order to express our Jianghong trading firm's sincerity, this is a welcome gift for joining our Jianghong trading firm." Zhuowen took Wu Han's storage bag and discovered that there were actually 80 million divine stones inside. Not only that, there were 2 stocks of level 6 divine herbs, 20 stocks of level 5 divine herbs, and 2 high-grade true god level divine swords. Regardless of whether it was Wu Han or Luo Pengfei, the meeting gifts that the two of them gave were extremely valuable. Even an ordinary true god 3 disasters might not be able to take out so many things as a gift. However, the two of them were void sky experts and owners of trading companies. Naturally, they were rich and overbearing. They didn't feel the pinch at all. Regardless of whether it was Wu Han or Luo Pengfei, they knew from Hong Shan and the black-clothed man that Zhuan had injured the Song family head, Song Jiahao, a year ago when he was in the late heaven god stage. they immediately realized how monstrous Zhuan was. They definitely had to rope in such a genius. In the future, it would be extremely beneficial for the trading company's development. Chapter 1959. Crepe Myrtle sect. Whether it was Wu Han or Luo Pengfei, their understanding of Zhuowen's battle prowess was the same as it was a year and a half ago. If they knew that Zhuowen had killed Song Jiahao not long ago, what kind of expression would they have? Zhuowen didn't care much about divine stones. He had a pool of fire spirit juice on him, and its value was immeasurable. If he lacked divine stones, he only needed to sell some of the fire spirit juice to get a large amount of divine stones. As for divine herbs, Zhuowen didn't lack them either. The Qiyun celestial soil was very effective. Zhuowen already had 2 withered level 7 divine herbs that had been revived. A mere level 6 divine herb wasn't enough to catch his eye. As for a true god artifact, there was no need to talk about it. Zhuowen could totally use divine stones to purchase it. To him, it did not have much attraction at all. However, Wu Han and Luo Pengfei were void sky experts, so Zhuowen could not give them any face. He thought for a while, then cupped his hands at the two of them. Seniors, I'm undisciplined by nature and don't want to be tied down. So, please take back these 2 items. After putting away the storage pouches, Wu Han and Luo Pengfei frowned. They didn't expect Zhuowen and Luo Pengfei to reject them. Since you don't want to, I won't force you. After saying that, Wu Han brought Hong Shan out of the teleportation formation in a very straightforward manner. Luo Pengfei glanced at Zhuowen indifferently, then also left the transportation array as if nothing had happened. Zhuowen frowned, but didn't think too much about it. He said to Xiao Tong and Yun Chuyu, "Let's go." After handing over a certain amount of divine stones, the 3 of them stepped into the transportation array. This transportation array was controlled by the Arcana Masters guarding the array. Moreover, the fee was based on the distance. The Ziwei Galaxy was quite far from the Brahmafine star, but it cost Zhuowen 10,000 divine stones. When Zhuowen opened his eyes, he found that what appeared in front of him was a pitch-black starry sky. This starry sky was incomparably dark, and there were not many stars in the surroundings. It was dark and cold. This is the Emperor Star System? Zhuowen looked around and found that there was no star system around. Oh no, this isn't the Ziwei Galaxy. It's still the Borderlands. Yun Chuyu pointed at a dot of light in the distance. That dot of light was the Brahmafine star. Zhuowen's heart trembled, and he immediately summoned Yun Chuyu and Xiao Tong into his spirit ring. Then, he unfurled his torch dragon wings and turned into a purple shadow that flew into the distant starry sky. Not long after Zhuowen disappeared, a terrifying hand suddenly smashed down, and the space where Zhuowen was just moments ago instantly distorted and collapsed. Looking at the terrifying hand behind him, Zhuowen's expression became extremely unsightly. This power was definitely not the power of a true god but the power of a void god. Zhuowen immediately understood the reason. It was likely that the teleportation array was not faulty. Instead, someone had tampered with the teleportation array. Only Wu Han of the Jianghong trading firm and Luo Pengfei of the dazzling light trading firm were capable of tampering with the teleportation array. Bang! The moment the hand behind him grabbed out, the starry sky above Zhuowen's head split open, and another terrifying hand grabbed out. The aura of this hand was completely different from the aura of the first hand. It was obviously not the same person. At this moment, Zhuowen's heart sank. He was afraid that he had encountered the worst possible situation. Luo Pengfei and Wu Han were very likely to join forces to deal with him. 2 great void sky experts had actually joined forces to deal with a junior like him. Zhuowen was a little angry in his heart. He knew that it was very likely that Hong Shan had said something to Wu Han that made Wu Han suspect that he still had a lot of fire spirit juice on him. The fire spirit juice had the effect of temporarily increasing one's comprehension ability, and it was also extremely attractive to void sky experts. Even a void sky expert would not be able to resist a pool of fire spirit juice. These 2 old men, and that bitch Hong Shan. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with fire. He stretched his torch dragon wings to the extreme, and at the same time, he added the power of Tao intent to the torch dragon wings. After receiving the power of Dao intent, the torch dragon shadow on the wings seemed to have been injected with stimulants, and its speed suddenly increased by a lot. Bang! Zhuan narrowly escaped the pursuit of the big hand, but the strong wind formed by the big hand streaking across the starry sky heavily bombarded his chest, causing him to feel as if he had been electrocuted. He felt a sweet taste in his throat, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. But he actually dodged it? A surprised voice came from the void, and then the two big hands swept over together and chased after Zhuan. Left with no other choice, Zhuan unleashed his 5th-level Dao intent. A dense purple Dao intent circled around his body before finally condensing on the wings behind his back, dyeing the torch dragon wings purple. Zhuan's speed suddenly increased by 5 times, and the two big hands that were originally close to Zhuan were actually shaken off by him. This kid really has a secret. He can actually refine the remnant wings of the torch dragon to this extent. Also, what kind of power is this purple intent? I have never seen this purple intent power in the Great Brahma domain. Another voice came from the starry sky, but it was full of greed. Although Zhuan used the 5th-level Dao intent and increased his speed to the extreme, the two divine senses that swept over from the starry sky firmly locked onto him. If he didn't get rid of these two divine senses, Zhuan wouldn't be able to escape. Thinking of this, Zhuan immediately released the soul-assimilating divine needle. The divine senses that were originally locked onto Zhuan were all swallowed by the soul-assimilating divine needle. However, Zhuan also knew the strength of the two great void sky experts, so he didn't let the soul-assimilating divine needle follow the divine senses to stab towards the owner of the divine senses. Instead, he controlled the soul-assimilating divine needle to absorb all the divine senses that surrounded him. What? Is this divine needle refined from the glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand? It actually swallowed the divine senses? At this moment, the voice in the starry sky came again, but the voice was extremely surprised. After the divine senses were completely swallowed by the soul-assimilating divine needle, Zhuan instantly disappeared on the spot like a purple shadow. Zhuan practically constantly urged the torch dragon wings, and he didn't dare to stop at all. After flying for about another half a month, he realized that he had completely shaken off the two void sky experts, and only then did he heave a sigh of relief. Wu Han, Luo Pengfei, since you've completely fallen out with me, don't blame me, Zhuan, for returning to your Brahma star in the future. Zhuan muttered in a low voice, and then he found Yun Chuyu and Xiao Tong. Big brother Zhua, did we successfully escape? Xiao Tong asked. Zhuan nodded, and then he looked around. He noticed that the surroundings were still pitch black, and he said helplessly, although we've shaken off Luo Pengfei and Wu Han, I think I'm lost. Yun Chuyu looked around, then took out a jade slip, opened it and said, we should be here. Although we're still in the borderlands, we're not far from the border. However, how are you so fast? It's only been half a month, and you've already arrived at the border? The borderlands around the Brahma star were extremely wide, and it would take more than 10 years to leave the border with a star disk. However, Zhuan had arrived in just half a month, so it was no wonder that Yun Chuyu was so surprised. Zhuan smiled embarrassedly, then casually made up a story about him having a spaceship at the level of a true god weapon. Yun Chuyu tactfully didn't ask any more questions. The closest place to here should be the Hard Galaxy. It's a first-grade galaxy, and there's also a teleportation array inside. After we enter this galaxy, we should be able to teleport back to the Emperor Star. Yun Chuyu said calmly. Zhuan didn't waste any time. He summoned the Flame Beast and brought the three of them to the Hard Galaxy on the star map. 2 months later, the Flame Beast entered the Hard Galaxy as scheduled. The moment the Flame Beast entered the Hard Galaxy, it attracted the attention of Hard Galaxy's ruler, Harg. After learning that Zhuan and the other two were disciples of the Crepe Myrtle sect, Harg was extremely enthusiastic. He even waived the cost of using the teleportation array. The white light of the teleportation array faded, and Zhuan opened his eyes once again. He found that what appeared before him was a huge continent with countless buildings standing tall on it. Around the continent were countless stars twinkling. It was obvious that this continent was located in the center of the galaxy. Brother Zhua, this continent is the Crepe Myrtle sect, And this galaxy is the Emperor's star system. Returning to her old home, Xiao Tong was in a good mood. Her beautiful eyes curved into crescents, and even Yun Chuyu couldn't help but smile. Senior Sister Yun, Senior Sister Xiao, you're finally back. A woman with a bit of baby fat stood outside the teleportation array, looking at Xiao Tong and Yun Chuyu in surprise. Huai Tong, how's the sect leader? Yun Chuyu smiled as she looked at the chubby woman in front of her. Unexpectedly, the woman's eyes immediately turned red. She sobbed and said, "The Great Elder and the others said that the sect leader is about to die. They also said that the sect leader's promotion ceremony will be held in a few days." What? Did the Great Elder say that? Or did the other elders agree? And who was promoted to sect leader? Yun Chuyu's pretty face changed slightly. The other 3 elders agreed as well. The one who was promoted to sect leader this time is the Great Elder's son, Zhao Yang. Huai Tong stammered. Outrageous. The sect leader isn't dead yet, and this Zhao Yin is too presumptuous. He actually dares to openly hold a sect leader's promotion ceremony. Does he not respect the sect leader at all? No, I have to go see the sect leader. As she spoke, Yun Chuyu hurriedly left the place. Senior sister, don't go. The sect leader's hall has already been sealed off by the Great Elder. He said that the sect leader only wants peace and quiet, and no one is allowed to disturb him. Otherwise, he will be punished according to the sect rules, Huai Tong hurriedly said. Big Brother Zhua, that first elder has always coveted our sect master's position. However, our sect master didn't do anything to the first elder on account of the fact that he's a veteran of 2 generations and is close to the previous sect master. This time, the sect leader was seriously injured outside due to an accident, and now the Great Elder wants to mess around. The sect leader is only seriously injured and not dead, and the Great Elder wants to promote a new sect leader. He's basically treating our sect leader like a dead person. Senior Sister Yun won't be able to gain anything by going to the sect leader's hall this time. Let's go together. Chapter 1960. Sect leader of the Crepe Myrtle sect. Yuan nodded. Even if Xiao Tong did not mention it, Yuan had already planned to meet the sect leader of the Crepe Myrtle sect. He had heard from Yun Chuyu that the ancient records and books of the Crepe Myrtle sect were all in the hands of the sect leader of the Crepe Myrtle sect. Therefore, if he wanted the specific records of the sun and moon herb that Yun Chuyu had mentioned, he had to find the sect leader of the Crepe Myrtle sect. Yuan and Xiao Tong followed behind Yun Chuyu. However, Yuan noticed that although many Crepe Myrtle sect disciples passed by along the way, none of them greeted Yun Chuyu. In fact, some of them even avoided her gaze. Yun Chuyu's expression was extremely gloomy. She had also noticed that something was wrong with the disciples around her. She did not need to think to know that the strange expressions of these disciples were definitely because of the Great Elder. Along the way, when Yun Chuyu arrived in front of the sect leader's hall, a graceful young man blocked her path. This young man was extremely handsome, the kind that could easily make budding girls infatuated with him. Beside the young man stood 2 old men with indifferent expressions. The 2 old men glanced at Yun Chuyu indifferently. They had no intention of greeting her at all. Zhuan stood behind Yun Chuyu and sized up the 3 people in front of him. The young man's cultivation was the same as Yun Chuyu's, at the peak of the heavenly god realm. As for the 2 old men beside him, they were both first disaster true gods. Isn't this our great senior sister? You've been out for so long. Did you get the ice flame profound yellow Ganoderma? The young man sized up Yun Chuyu, his gaze extremely impudent. Zhao Yang, you're too impudent. Senior Sister Yun is your senior sister. How dare you be so impudent and block our path? Xiao Tong said coldly. Zhao Yang looked at Xiao Tong indifferently and said coldly, Did I speak to you? Then he looked at Yun Chuyu and continued, What? Great senior sister, did you not complete the task given to you by the sect leader? You should know that the sect leader gave you 30 million divine stones. If you did not get the ice flame profound yellow Ganoderma, then hand over the 30 million divine stones. Yun Chuyu's beautiful eyes were cold as she said coldly, I've already bought the ice flame profound yellow Ganoderma, but why should I give it to you? Are you qualified to take away the ice flame profound yellow Ganoderma? Zhao Yang didn't take it seriously and said lightly, 3 days later, the sect master replacement ceremony will be held. At that time, I will be the new sect master. Do you think I am qualified? Yun Chuyu said coldly, without the agreement of the sect leader, what right do you have to ask for the ice flame mysterious yellow Ganoderma? Zhao Yang's eyes turned cold. He said, Elder Cheng, how should we deal with those who offend their superiors? One of the white-robed elders sneered, capture him and lock him up in the dungeon to reflect on his mistakes. Yun Chuyu's pretty face was pale with anger. She pointed at Zhao Yang and said, Zhao Yang, you're too presumptuous. You're not the sect leader yet. The one who offended you is you, not me. Zhao Yang didn't care at all and said, What? It's only a matter of time before I become the sect master. Why are you so dissatisfied? Could it be that you covet the position of sect master? Zhao Yang, unless you let us see the sect master, if the sect master personally agrees to let you succeed as the new sect master, then I have no objections. However, if you're lying, don't blame me for being rude. Yun Chuyu had calmed down at this moment. Zhao Yang shook his head and said, Eldest senior sister, the sect master is too tired right now. She doesn't want to see anyone yet. She needs the ice flame mysterious yellow Ganoderma. Hand it over first. When the sect master isn't tired anymore, I will hand it over to her. Yun Chuyu ignored Zhao Yang and walked straight toward the sect master's palace. Since eldest senior sister has no regard for the law, then don't blame me for being rude. Elder Cheng, take her. Zhao Yang gave the white-robed elder a look. The latter nodded and immediately formed a claw with his right hand, grabbing at Yun Chuyu. Terrifying star god power surged out, forming an invisible giant claw that enveloped Yun Chuyu's entire body. Zhuan stood silently at the back. He wanted to see Yun Chuyu's strength. Elder Cheng was not very strong, and he did not have the aura of thunder disaster on him. His strength was very ordinary. He wanted to see how strong Yun Chuyu was. Yun Chuyu stood quietly, not afraid of the white-robed elder's attack at all. Her jade-like hand formed a palm, and she pushed it upward. The palm of her hand became a gust of wind that slammed into the white-robed elder's claw. A sound like muffled thunder rang out. Yun Chuyu's legs tensed up, and she did not move from her spot. The white-robed elder let out a muffled groan and retreated dozens of steps. His wrinkled face was slightly gloomy. Elder ego as well. Yun Chuyu is too presumptuous. Not only did she offend her superiors, but she even attacked a fellow disciple. She is truly despicable, Zhao Yang hurriedly said. The black-robed elder standing on the other side nodded and turned into a black shadow, attacking Yun Chuyu from behind. The white-robed elder who had retreated was like a whirlwind, sweeping toward Yun Chuyu from the front, forming a pincer attack with the black-robed elder. Despicable! Xiao Tong's pretty face was flushed red, and her beautiful eyes were filled with anger. Just as she was about to pounce forward, she was stopped by Zhuan. Big brother Zhuan. Xiao Tong looked at Zhuan in confusion. Zhuan smiled and said, Your eldest senior sister is not weak. 2 pieces of trash can't do anything to her. Zhuan's voice was not soft, so it was naturally heard by the black-robed elder and the white-robed elder who were attacking Yun Chuyu from both sides. When they heard Zhuan call them trash, the 2 elders' eyes were filled with rage. They were so angry that their bodies trembled, and their bodies revealed openings. Yun Chuyu's beautiful eyes flashed, and she immediately grasped the openings that the 2 elders revealed due to their rage. Yun Chuyu's jade-like foot kicked off the ground, and her slender waist spun out like a propeller. Her hands formed palms, and she waved them out. The powerful star god energy was like an invisible ripple that blasted the 2 elders' openings. Bang! Bang! 2 muffled groans were heard, and the expressions of the 2 elders changed slightly. They were sent flying, and they crashed to the ground in a sorry state. Yun Chuyu looked at Zhuan. She was a smart woman, and she knew that Zhuan had purposely made a sound just now to distract the 2 elders. Let's go in. We don't need to pay attention to this piece of trash. Zhuan said calmly and walked towards the sect leader's hall. Earlier, he had used the shapeless all-life to temporarily confuse the 2 elders. Otherwise, Yun Chuyu would not have been able to defeat the two elders so easily when she was fighting against two of them alone. Zhuan opened his mouth, but he did not dare to refute. The two elders had been severely injured by Yun Chuyu, and he was definitely no match for Yun Chuyu. Even if he was angry at Zhuan for calling him trash, he could only silently endure it. Yun Chuyu giggled, and her beautiful eyes stared at Zhuan's figure. For the first time, she felt that the cold young man in front of her had a humorous side. There's a restriction. When they approached the door of the sect leader's palace, Zhuan reached out to stop Xiao Tong and Yun Chuyu. Brother Zhua, this is a restriction set up by the sect leader. It's to prevent any villains in the sect from doing anything harmful to the sect leader while he's injured, Xiao Tong said, deliberately looking at Zhao Yang, who was not far away, with an ugly expression. Yun Chuyu stepped forward and formed a seal with both hands. The restriction that originally covered the door slowly opened, and a gap the height of a person appeared. She pushed open the door and stepped into the sect leader's palace. Zhuan and Xiao Tong followed closely behind. When the three of them entered the sect leader's palace, the restriction returned to its original state. So the method of restriction was really given to Yun Chuyu? It looks like the sect leader doesn't trust us, Zhao Yang muttered softly with a frown. However, I have my own ways to ruin your reputation. After saying this, Zhao Yang's eyes were cold, and he immediately left with the two elders. Inside the sect leader's palace, it was not an ordinary hall. Instead, it was a world of ice and snow. Dense cold air rolled in, and even Zhuan felt a chill. It was a cold that penetrated deep into his bones. In the middle of the hall, there was a huge ice pool. 8 huge ice walls stood around the ice pool. Chuyu, you're back? From within the ice pool came a woman's aged voice. Zhuan did not recklessly extend his divine sense to investigate. Instead, he raised his head and looked at the ice pool. Between the gaps of the ice walls, he saw a beautiful figure faintly discernible in the ice pool. This figure wore an ice blue veil and sat on the ice pool with her back facing them. Yun Chuyu and Xiao Tong both bowed respectfully and said, "Greetings, sect leader." The figure remained motionless, sitting on the ice pool like an ice sculpture. At the same time, Yun Chuyu took out the Frost Flame Mysterious Yellow Ganoderma from her spirit ring and placed it outside the ice wall. Sect leader, Chuyu did not disappoint you and brought the Frost Flame Mysterious Yellow Ganoderma. The Frost Flame Mysterious Yellow Ganoderma slowly melted into the ice wall, then rose from the bottom of the ice pool and landed beside the figure. Zhuan looked at the figure in confusion. He found that the figure had not moved from the beginning to the end, as if she had become one with the ice pool. Who is this person? The Crepe Myrtle sect leader asked. Yun Chuyu said respectfully, "Sect leader, his name is Jun." This time, it was all thanks to him that junior sister Xiao and I were able to escape from the Brahma Fiend Star. Then, Yun Chuyu briefly explained the matter of the Brahma Fiend Star. The Crepe Myrtle sect leader was silent for a while, then a terrifying murderous intent surged out from him. This murderous intent made even Zhuan shiver. He was sure that the Crepe Myrtle sect leader was not simple. Zhuan had cultivated for so many years, but this was the first time he had encountered such a powerful murderous intent. You are Zhuan, right? Thank you for saving Chuyu and Xiao Tong. If it weren't for you, not only would they not have been able to obtain the Frost Flame Mysterious Yellow Ganoderma, they would have even lost their lives. Speaking of this, Zhuan found that the ice wall in front of him began to squirm, and then a black or the size of a wash basin appeared. There was a hint of purple on the surface of this ore, and it gently flickered. This is the glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand? Zhuan looked at the wash basin-sized ore, his pupils shrinking into needles. He could not help but be shocked. He knew very well how valuable this thing was. After his soul-absorbing divine needle was mixed with the thumb-sized glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand, its power had greatly increased. But now, what appeared in front of him was a wash basin-sized glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand. Zhuan had never seen such a huge glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand before. Its value was simply inestimable. This is too valuable, Zhuan said with a serious expression. Chapter 1961. Extreme True Divinity. There's no need to be so polite. The disciples of the crepe myrtle sect are not so worthless, and Chuyu is my niece. My bloodline is not something this glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand can compare to, and this glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand will be of great use to you. In Bingyun's aged voice rang out once again, and Juan took another look at Yun Chuyu. No wonder Yun Chuyu was so concerned about In Bingyun. The two of them were related by blood. Big brother Zhua, this is the sect master's sincerity, please accept it. Yun Chuyu bowed to Juan. Yuan had helped her a lot, and now she was addressing him as Big brother Juan. It was clear that Yun Chuyu was grateful to him. Seeing that it was difficult to refuse such kindness, Juan nodded and put away the glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand. With this glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand, Yuan could not only refine the soul-assimilating divine needle again, but he could also use the extra glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand to refine a divine sword that was suitable for him. However, Yuan was a little surprised by how Yun Chuyu addressed In Bingyun. Since she was In Bingyun's niece, why did she only address her as sect master? This form of address felt a little distant. Sect master, what's going on? How can the great elder be so presumptuous? You're still in seclusion and haven't died, but the great elder is planning to hold a ceremony for the new sect master. He's completely looking down on you, Xiao Tong said somewhat angrily. Let them be. Zhao Yin is the previous sect master's younger brother, and I'm the previous sect master's direct disciple. If it weren't for the previous sect master's will, I wouldn't want to be the sect master of the crepe myrtle sect. I promised the previous sect master that I would bring the crepe myrtle sect to greater heights, but I didn't expect that the crepe myrtle sect would decline even further in my hands. Moreover, I've been eroded by the ice of the illusory Rift Valley, and even the ice flame heaven yellow Ganoderma can only slightly delay my pain. Zhao Yin was right about one thing, I don't have much time left. In Bingyun said bitterly. Auntie, you'll be fine. You are my only family in this world, please don't. Yun Chuyu, who had been calm all this while, suddenly burst into tears. Her voice trembled as she looked at In Bingyun's back. Xiao Tong squatted beside Yun Chuyu and gently patted her back. She knew the struggle in Yun Chuyu's heart the best. Yun Chuyu looked strong and cold on the surface, but it was actually a forced cover. In Bingyun's stiff voice suddenly trembled. She wanted to turn around, but the freezing power of the ice pond was too terrifying. She couldn't move at all. Chuyu, I really didn't expect you to call me aunt while I'm still alive. I'm already very happy. I'm really sorry. I could only save you, but I couldn't save your father. I'm really useless. In Bingyun's voice trembled. Yun Chuyu's eyes were brimming with tears as she said, I've never blamed you. I only blame myself for being too useless and implicating my father. Aunt, you've already done your best. If it weren't for you, how could you have ended up like this? I swore that I would personally go to the core star field of the Great Brahma domain and kill Lei Qi to avenge my father. In Bingyun hurriedly said, Child, don't do anything stupid. Lei Qi was already a famous genius in the Great Brahma domain several thousand years ago. After several thousand years, he has already reached the Void Sky realm. Coupled with the strength of the Dark Mirage sect, his strength will only grow stronger. Don't do anything stupid. Yun Chuyu stubbornly shook her head and said, Aunt, don't worry. If I don't enter the Void Sky realm, I won't go look for Lei Qi without permission. I won't seek my own death. In Bingyun knew Yun Chuyu's personality and could only sigh softly, not saying anything else. Chu, Xiao Tong, you two go to the side hall first. I have some things to say to this brother Zhuan, In Bingyun suddenly said. Yun Chuyu and Xiao Tong looked at each other and nodded. Then, they entered the side hall on the other side. Can you come to my side? It's not convenient for me to turn around right now. In Bingyun said. Zhuowen's eyes flickered and he took a step forward. The moment he entered the ice wall, a bone-chilling coldness drilled into his body. Zhuowen frowned, but he didn't care too much about it. He entered the ice wall. His physical body wasn't the physical body of an ordinary cultivator, but Devour's. Although the illusory Rift Valley ice was powerful, it couldn't threaten Devour's physical body. Yin Bingyun's consciousness naturally noticed Yuan, whose expression was normal. Her beautiful eyes revealed astonishment. She knew how powerful the illusory Rift Valley ice was. Even if an ordinary true god of 3 disasters stepped into the ice wall, it was impossible for him to be as calm as Jun. The reason she let Zhuowen in was to test Zhuowen's strength. After all, Zhuowen's aura was too weak. He was only at the peak of the heavenly god realm. How could she believe that Jun had really killed true god of 3 disasters? The current scene made Yin Bingyun believe Yun Chuyu's words a little. Sect Master Yin, are you satisfied? Zhuowen stood behind Yin Bingyun and asked calmly. Yin Bingyun naturally knew what Zhuowen meant. She curled her cherry lips and said with a smile, "Then, please don't mind me. I just wanted to test you. I don't have any ill intentions towards you." "I know. That's why I didn't attack." Zhuowen nodded. Yin Bingyun, who was in front of him, gave Zhuowen a strange feeling. Her aura was clearly only that of a 2 disasters real god, but Zhuowen actually felt a sense of danger from her. This sense of danger was much stronger than that of Song Jiahao, who was a 3 disasters real god. "You must be very confused. I'm only a true god of 2 disasters. Why would I give you such a strong sense of danger?" Yin Bingyun was like a worm in Zhuowen's stomach and said with a smile. Yun was silent. Yin Bingyun continued, "It's because I've been a true god of 2 disasters for 9,900 years. I've experienced 19 fires. I'm only 100 years away from the 20th fire." Zhuowen's eyes shrunk and he looked at Yin Bingyun in disbelief. He did not expect Yin Bingyun to be a true god of 2 disasters for so long. No wonder she gave him such a strong sense of danger. Yin Bingyun was not an ordinary true god of 2 disasters. At the same time, Yun recalled when Tai Ching had introduced Yu Qing. He had said that Yu Qing had been a true god of 1 disaster for 10,000 years and had experienced 20 lightning disasters. After experiencing 20 lightning disasters, Yu Qing, who was only a true god of 1 disaster, had killed true god of 3 disasters in 1 move. Back then, Zhuowen did not have a clear understanding of the realms. Now that he was a peak heaven god, he naturally had a deeper understanding of the realms of a real god. He knew that the calamities of a true god would be more terrifying each time. Even 10 calamities were already rare enough, let alone 20. However, Yin Bingyun was able to experience 19 fires. It could be seen how terrifying Yin Bingyun's abilities were. No wonder Yin Bingyun gave him such a strong sense of danger. "Sect Master Yin, you're going to experience the 20th fire in 100 years? Zhuowen suddenly thought of something and asked. Yin Bingyun smiled sadly and nodded. "Yes, but it's also the arrival of my death." Speaking of this, Yin Bingyun spoke again. "Yun, do you know the legend of Extreme Way Real God?" "Extreme Way Real God?" Zhuowen shook his head. It was his first time hearing about Extreme Way Real God. There are 3 types of Extreme Way Real God. They are Real God Extreme Thunder, Real God Extreme Fire, and Real God Extreme Wind. Legend has it that Extreme Way Real God is extremely powerful. They are terrifying real gods who can really compete with Void Sky experts. However, there is a drawback to Extreme Way Real God. Once one becomes an Extreme Way Real God, it becomes extremely difficult to advance to Void Sky. In other words, Extreme Way Real God is too powerful. The universe rules will reject the Extreme Way Real God's Void Sky bridge. The condition to become an Extreme Way Real God is to stay in a realm of Real God for 10,000 years and experience 20 disasters. For example, if you experience 20 thunder disasters at the 1 disaster Real God stage, you will become Real God Extreme Thunder. Correspondingly, Real God 2 disasters and Real God 3 disasters will correspond to Real God Extreme Fire and Real God Extreme Wind. Zhuowen was suddenly enlightened. So this was the so-called Extreme Tao Real God. Back then, Yu Qing should have been Extreme Thunder Real God. However, Yu Qing eventually became a Void Sky Real God. It seemed that Extreme Tao Real Gods could also become a Void Sky Real God, but the difficulty was higher. "Sect Master Yin, do you feel that you won't be able to survive the 20th fire?" Zhuowen asked. Yin Bingyun smiled sadly. "No. Regardless of whether I can become real God extreme fire or not, after 100 years, I won't be able to escape the fate of dying. Zhuan asked in surprise, "What do you mean by that? Do you know where the illusory Rift Valley ice on my body came from?" Yin Bingyun changed the topic and asked. Although Zhuan was confused by Yin Bingyun's words, he still answered, "Miss Yun, did you say that the illusory Rift Valley ice was cast by a cultivator called Lei Qi from the Serene Fantasy sect?" The Serene Fantasy sect is one of the top 10 sects in the core star region of the Great Brahma domain. It is a giant existence in the entire Great Brahma domain. Lei Qi is a genius from the Serene Fantasy sect, and his background is extremely strong. Yin Bingyun continued, "The illusory Rift Valley ice was cast on my body by Lei Qi on purpose, and he let me return to the Crepe Myrtle sect on purpose. Originally, I didn't understand Lei Qi's intention. However, as thousands of years passed, I realized that my cultivation had been stuck at Real God 2 disasters. Even if I had accumulated enough, I wouldn't be able to advance to Real God 3 disasters. Moreover, due to the illusory Rift Valley ice, every time there was a fire, the ice would help me to pass through the calamity. As such, I was able to pass through each fire safely, all the way until the 19th fire, Hun became silent. He had already guessed that Yin Bingyun wasn't willing to take the path of an extreme way Real God. Instead, it was done by Lei Qi on purpose. The reason why Yin Bingyun's cultivation couldn't advance was because of the illusory Rift Valley ice. On top of that, the illusory Rift Valley ice could help Yin Bingyun pass through the fire. The matter was very clear. Lei Qi wanted Yin Bingyun to become Real God Extreme Fire. You should have guessed it. Everything was arranged by Lei Qi. Although I don't know what his motive is, I know that once I pass through the 20th fire, Lei Qi will come to the Crepe Myrtle sect to take me away. Yin Bingyun said sadly. Chapter 1962. Blood Immortal Sword. Yin Bingyun looked at Zhuan with appreciation and smiled. "Come sit in front of me." Zhuan strode over and sat in front of Yin Bingyun. Looking up at the woman in front of him, Yun was stunned. Yin Bingyun's beauty was almost on par with Yun Chuyu's. Due to the ice in the Phantom Rift Valley, Yin Bingyun's long hair was dyed white, and even her eyebrows were covered in ice. Her beautiful face was pale, and there was a delicate beauty to it. "Sect Master Yin, if there's anything, just say it. If it's within my power, I will definitely help you," Zhuan said in a deep voice. Yin Bingyun had given him such a large amount of glorious purple galaxy divine sand, so Zhuan had a very good impression of her. If it was within his power, he would naturally help her. Of course, if Yin Bingyun asked him to deal with that so-called Lei Qi, he would definitely refuse. From Yin Bingyun's words, he could tell that Lei Qi was very powerful. Zhuan was indeed strong, but he was not so conceited as to think that he could fight against a Void Sky expert. Yin Bingyun nodded. "Chuyu told me before that she has invited you to become a guest elder of our Crepe Myrtle sect. Do you also plan to represent our Crepe Myrtle sect in the Interstellar Tournament?" Zhuan smiled. "Don't worry, Sect Master Yin. Since I promised Miss Yun, I will naturally do it." "I'm relieved to hear that. Actually, I have one more thing to ask of you. Crepe Myrtle sect's great elder Zhao Yin has always coveted the position of sect master. Now that I can't move, he is even more arrogant and despotic." Speaking of this, Yin Bingyun took out a jade token and said, "This is the sect master's token. Give it to Chuyu for me. I hope you can help Chuyu establish her prestige and let her ascend to the position of sect master." Taking the jade token, Zhuan cupped his fists and said, "Sect Master Yin, don't worry. I will do it for you." Hearing this, Yin Bingyun smiled. However, hesitation soon appeared in her eyes. Then she opened her mouth and spat out a flaming sword filled with the aura of disaster. "Zhun, I won't treat you unfairly. This flame sword is a flame sword that I refined with the power of 19 fires. I see that you also use swords, so this sword should be of some help to you." Yin Bingyun laughed. Receiving the flaming sword, Zhuowen's pupils shrank to the size of needles. He could feel the terrifying energy contained within the flaming sword. This was the unique aura of fire. Moreover, it was an aura that far surpassed any other kind of fire. Although Zhuan wasn't sure how terrifying the fire sword that was refined from the energy of the 19 fires was, he knew that the fire sword in front of him was definitely much stronger than a true god artifact. It was probably infinitely close to a void god artifact. I call this sword the Extreme Dao Fire Sword. Although it still lacks the tempering of a fire sword and this Extreme Dao Fire Sword is not perfect, its power is still not to be underestimated. Yin Bingyun's delicate body trembled slightly as she forced out a smile. Sect Master Yin, this sword. Zhuowen was just about to say something when he was interrupted by Yin Bingyun. Zhuowen, this sword is one of the things that Lei Qi wants. I'm actually taking it out because I want to see if you dare to accept this supreme flaming sword. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. In fact, the moment Yin Bingyun took out the Extreme Dao Fire Sword, he had already guessed it. The Extreme Dao Fire Sword was indeed terrifying, but it was something that Lei Qi of the Dark Fantasy sect wanted. If Lei Qi came to the Crepe Myrtle sect to take Yin Bingyun away after 100 years, his fate would be obvious. He would definitely be hunted down by Lei Qi. I know that your talent is very high. You were able to kill an ordinary true god of 3 disasters at the peak heaven god realm. This is an extremely rare monstrous talent in the Great Brahma Sky region. Your future is limitless. In 100 years, don't you have the confidence to advance to the Void Sky realm? Once your cultivation reaches the Void Sky realm, will you still be afraid of Lei Qi? Yin Bingyun looked hopefully at Zhuowen. I will accept this sword. Zhuowen's gaze was calm as he accepted the Extreme Dao Fire Sword. It wasn't because of Yin Bingyun or Lei Qi, but because of Xiao Hei's Thunder Fire Sword. The moment the Extreme Dao Fire Sword was taken out, Xiao Hei had already started shouting. This Extreme Dao Fire Sword was too suitable for the Thunder Fire Sword. Once the Extreme Dao Fire Sword was integrated into the Thunder Fire Sword, the Thunder Fire Sword would probably advance to a true god weapon immediately. Moreover, it wouldn't be an ordinary true god weapon. Seeing Zhuowen accept the Extreme Dao Fire Sword, Yin Bingyun let out a sigh of relief. She took out the Extreme Dao Fire Sword with the intention of tying Zhuowen to the Crepe Myrtle sect. She was optimistic about Zhuowen's talent and future. In her opinion, Zhuowen was too monstrous. A peak heavenly god killing true god 3 disasters. Even Lei Qi back then couldn't do it, but the young man in front of her had done it. She firmly believed that once the youth in front of her rose, even Lei Qi wouldn't be able to contend against him. Therefore, she could only use this method. Even though she knew that her actions would make Zhuowen unhappy, she had no other choice. She couldn't even move. She didn't even have the right to commit suicide. She could only be bound by the ice of the illusory Rift Valley like a living dead. She had to find someone worthy of her trust. The Crepe Myrtle sect had already declined. Moreover, over the years, there hadn't been any brilliant geniuses that appeared. Although Yun Chuyu's talent was powerful, it was far from what Yin Bingyun had expected. She had fought with Lei Qi before and knew how monstrous Lei Qi was. So what if Yun Chuyu's cultivation had entered the Void Sky realm? The gap between Lei Qi and Yun Chuyu would only grow bigger. However, Zhuowen had appeared. Especially after hearing about Zhuowen's terrifying battle prowess from Yun Chuyu, Yin Bingyun knew that the Zhuowen in front of her was the best candidate for her. Therefore, she gave her precious glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand to Zhuowen in order to gain his favor. You can rest in the side hall for the next few days. When the sect master's inauguration ceremony begins, I hope that you can attend the ceremony with Chuyu. Yin Bingyun's face was pale, and her voice was much weaker than before. Sect Master Yin, take care of yourself. I have 5 stalks of Ice Flame Mysterious Yellow Ganoderma here. They should be quite beneficial to you. Zhuowen took out 5 stalks of Ice Flame Mysterious Yellow Ganoderma and placed them in front of Yin Bingyun. Then, he left the main hall and entered the side hall. Yin Bingyun stared blankly at the Ice Flame Mysterious Yellow Ganoderma in front of her. Her beautiful eyes were filled with complicated emotions. In the end, she said in a low voice, "Thank you." Although Yin Bingyun seemed to be scheming against him, to Zhuowen, it was actually a win-win situation. Moreover, Yin Bingyun did give him some benefits and showed her sincerity. Therefore, Zhuowen was quite grateful to Yin Bingyun. In the dimly lit side hall, Zhuan handed the sect master's token to Yun Chuyu. Then he chose a room and entered seclusion. As for the teleportation tablet and the jade slip with the records of the sun and moongrass, Yun Chuyu also sent them to his room. Zhuan took out the extreme flaming sword. A terrifying heat wave spread out. Even Zhuan was almost affected by this heat wave, and he let out a muffled groan. Zhuan was so frightened that he hurriedly used his enormous divine power to block this heat wave. Just now, in the ice of the illusory Rift Valley, this extreme flaming sword was very quiet. Now that it's in a different place, it's actually so violent. After barely blocking the heat wave, Zhuan was quite shocked. This sword is just right for me, huh? The thunder fire sword flew out from Zhuan's body and instantly slashed at the extreme flaming sword. The extreme flaming sword was not to be outdone. It swept out with its sword and stood on top of the thunder fire sword. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, the two swords began to fight. Terrifying flames engulfed the entire room. Fortunately, Zhuan used the heaven-devouring eye. The devouring power spread out around the room, and all the terrifying aftershocks that spread out were all devoured by the heaven-devouring eye. Zhuan smiled bitterly. Xiao He had clearly told him before that he could subdue the extreme flaming sword. How did it end up like this? If he had known this would happen, he would not have taken out the extreme flaming sword. The thunder fire sword and the extreme flaming sword fought for an entire day and night before the extreme flaming sword was finally slashed flying by the thunder fire sword. After that, the extreme flaming sword stabbed into the ground, and its violent flames were restrained greatly. Zhuan's expression was unsightly. He stared at Xiao He and said, "Xiao He, you clearly said that you could easily subdue the extreme flaming sword. Why do I have to clean up your mess instead?" Xiao He smiled embarrassedly and said, "This extreme flaming sword is quite capable, so I just spent a little more effort." Zhuan shook his head helplessly, and then he looked at the extreme flaming sword and said, "How do you intend to deal with this extreme flaming sword?" "Ha, of course I'll refine it into a sword servant. The Thunder Fire Sword is an equipment cultivator and is skilled in the art of equipment refinement. How could it not have some sword servants by its side? Moreover, my sword servants must be refined from high-quality materials. This extreme flaming sword is even of the highest quality. Once this sword is refined into a sword servant, it will be of great significance to me. Not only will I be able to absorb the fire energy here to recover myself, but I can also borrow the power of the extreme flaming sword to protect me." Speaking of this, Xiao He sat on the sword hilt and waved its little claw and said, "Little blood disciple, come out quickly." "Dragon Master, the little blood disciple is here." A flattering voice instantly sounded, and then a blood sword suddenly flew out and circled around Xiao He. The shadow of the blood immortal floated above the blood sword. You refined the blood immortal into a sword servant as well?" Zhuan looked at the blood sword in surprise. The blood immortal's aura still lingered on the blood sword. "I have already discussed with the little blood disciple before. If he wants to live a good life with this Dragon Master, then he has to be like me and become an equipment cultivator. So I refined the blood immortal's body into the blood immortal sword, and his soul into the equipment spirit. You have to know that there are no bottlenecks for equipment cultivators. The only thing you need is to absorb the required materials and continuously refine it. The equipment cultivator will naturally become more and more powerful." Xiao He looked at the crossed legs and said rather proudly. Zhuan's expression became serious. This was the first time Zhuan had heard of equipment cultivators. Especially the sword servant that Xiao He mentioned, he had never heard of it before. Zhuan glanced at Xiao He. He had a feeling that the thunder fire sword that Xiao He was attached to was definitely not simple. "I will take the extreme flaming sword first. After I refine it into a sword servant, I'll let you play with it. Besides that, give me the glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand. I'll refine the soul assimilating needle once more for you, and then I'll refine a suitable sword for you." Chapter 1963. Glorious amethyst galaxy sword. Zhuan looked satisfied as he stared at the divine sword before him that was suffused with a purple aura. This was a divine sword that Xiao He had refined using the glorious amethyst galaxy sand. Its design was exquisite and its power was incomparably powerful. Zhuan had named this sword the glorious amethyst galaxy sword. He had to admit that Xiao He's refining method was indeed brilliant. It had completely brought out the characteristics of the glorious amethyst galaxy sand. Zhuan waved his right hand, and the divine sword cut through the air. Zhuan found that the divine sense he had derived was completely cut off by the glorious amethyst galaxy sword. After the divine sense was cut off, a purple devouring power followed the divine sense and spread towards his spirit. Retrieving his soul consciousness, Zhuan revealed a satisfied expression. Not only was the glorious purple galaxy divine sword sharp, but it also had the terrifying ability to sever soul consciousness. Perhaps, it could also disturb the enemy. Coupled with his soul-absorbing divine needle, it could be said to be one of his trump cards. Xiao He also had an even more powerful and terrifying supreme flaming sword. If Xiao He could successfully refine the supreme flaming sword into a sword slave, it would be of great help to him. At this moment, there was a knock on the door. Zhuan knew that Yun Chuyu was looking for him. Now that he thought about it, it seemed that 3 days had passed. The inauguration ceremony was about to begin. He opened the door. Yun Chuyu and Xiao Tong were waiting outside. However, the two women were fully armed. They did not look like they were participating in a ceremony at all. Instead, they looked more like they were going to battle. "Brother Zhuan, we're counting on you." Yun Chuyu and Xiao Tong cupped their fists and said to Zhuan. Zhuan smiled and said, "Let's go." Miss Yun has the sect leader's token. It's not up to Zhao Yin to decide who is qualified to become the sect leader of the Crepe Myrtle sect. The Elder's Peak of the Crepe Myrtle sect was extremely lively at this moment. Many disciples of the Crepe Myrtle sect had swarmed into the Elder's Peak. Not only that, but the true gods of the other forces of the Crepe Myrtle galaxy had also been invited. 6 old men sat on the white jade platform. Below the platform stood countless disciples of the Crepe Myrtle sect. Since they are electing a new sect leader, why isn't our sect leader Yin present? There was a lot of discussion below the stage. Electing a new patriarch was a major event. Many disciples of the Crepe Myrtle sect had gathered here. However, most of the disciples were puzzled by Yin Bingyun's absence. There were very few people in the Crepe Myrtle sect who knew about Yin Bingyun. Only a few high-level people knew about the specific situation of Yin Bingyun, and this high level naturally included Great Elder Zhao Yin. Among the 6 old men on the stage, a slender old man dressed in a white robe stood up and pressed his hands forward. The noise below the stage also completely quieted down. Today is the day of the new sect leader election. Perhaps everyone is curious as to why sect leader Yin is absent. Actually, it's because sect master Yin isn't feeling well and can't leave the sect master's hall for the time being. Therefore, this old man will be acting on behalf of the new sect master selection ceremony. The white-robed old man was Great Elder Zhao Yin of the Crepe Myrtle sect. His status was only below Yin Bingyun. Although many disciples of the sect felt that something was wrong, but no one dared to disobey Zhao Yin. In addition, Yin Bingyun had rarely appeared in the Crepe Myrtle sect in these thousands of years, and did not manage the affairs of the sect. This allowed Zhao Yin to grasp the power of the Crepe Myrtle sect step by step. Even the other 5 elders were gradually bought over by Zhao Yin. Elder Zhao, now is the world of the young people. We, the older generation, do not need to participate in the selection of the sect leader. I feel that in our Crepe Myrtle sect, whether it is talent, strength, or character, I think Zhao Yang is the most suitable to be the new sect leader. A short old man in a blue robe quickly rose to his feet and said with a laugh. The other 4 elders also echoed, agreeing with the words of the short old man. Zhao Yin, however, waved his hand and said modestly, although Zhao Yang is not bad, the other disciples of the sect are not bad either. The selection of the new sect leader must be fair and just. As he spoke, Zhao Yin gave Zhao Yang, who was standing below the stage, a look. Zhao Yang smiled slightly, stepped out, and landed on the stage. He cupped his fists to the many disciples below the stage and said, "Great Elder is right. Whether Zhao Yang is qualified to be the sect leader or not, I ask the senior brothers to test me. If any of the senior brothers are not convinced, feel free to come up and challenge me. I will accept all challenges. If you can defeat me, I will naturally not dare to ask for the position of sect leader." As soon as Zhao Yang said this, there was a dead silence below the stage. No one came up to challenge Zhao Yang. Zhao Yang's talent was not bad, and his cultivation had reached the peak of the divine realm. Moreover, he had the support of the 6 elders. Even if Zhao Yang was just being polite, they did not dare to take him seriously. So that's how it is. As long as I defeat you, I can succeed the position of sect leader. Very well, I Yun Chuyu challenge you. If you lose to me, it proves that you are not qualified to be the new sect leader. A crisp voice rang out. Many of the disciples below the stage turned to look behind them. There were 3 people walking over, and the one in the lead was naturally Yun Chuyu. Zhuowen and Xiao Tong followed behind her silently. "It's great senior sister. I heard that great senior sister had returned, but I thought it was just a rumor. So it's true." Seeing Yun Chuyu, many disciples looked surprised, and some even looked excited. However, these disciples soon seemed to be afraid of something, and they all hid their emotions. Zhao Yin glanced at Yun Chuyu indifferently, and the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. He had known that Yun Chuyu had returned 3 days ago. Originally, he thought that Yun Chuyu would hide in the sect leader's hall and not come out. He did not expect Yun Chuyu to come out today, and even directly challenge Xiao Yang for the position of sect leader. It seems that Yun Chuyu still does not know the current situation. Zhao Yin sneered in his heart. "Yun Chuyu, you sure have guts. You actually dare to come back. You clearly knew that the sect leader's body was unstable and that he needed the ice flame yellow Ganoderma. Back then, not only did you not give it to us, but you even barged into the sect leader's hall. You are clearly disrespecting your superiors and have no regard for the law. Originally, we could have let you off, but now you are still coveting the position of sect leader. You really have no sense of shame." The short elder standing beside Zhao Yin looked coldly at Yun Chuyu, who was walking toward them, and scolded her sternly. Yun Chuyu only glanced at the short elder indifferently and said coldly, "The 6 of you are elders of the Crepe Myrtle sect. You enjoy the sect's resources and receive the respect of the disciples. You should be role models, but each and every one of you is trying to curry favor with those in power and break the law. Now, you even want to use the name of sect leader to appoint a new sect leader. Are you all planning to rebel?" Whoosh! Yun Chuyu's every word was like a gem. She did not hold back in the slightest as she spoke, causing an uproar among the disciples below the stage. As for the 6 elders led by Zhao Yin, their expressions were even uglier. "Nonsense. Yun Chuyu, as the eldest senior sister, you speak without thinking. You are even disrespecting your superiors. If I do not take you down today, I am not worthy of being an elder of the sect." The short elder was so angry that his face turned red. He stomped his right foot and rushed toward Yun Chuyu, intending to capture her. Yun Chuyu's beautiful eyes were sharp. This short elder was too presumptuous. He attacked her without saying anything. "This is the sect leader's token. It is clear who the new sect leader is. You still dare to attack me?" Yun Chuyu said coldly. "It must be a fake sect leader's token. Yun Chuyu, you really have guts. You even dare to take out a fake token. It looks like I can't let you live today." The short elder's pupils shrank and his body froze. However, he then rushed toward Yun Chuyu at an even faster speed. Murderous intent surged from his body. He was planning to kill her. Yun Chuyu was so angry that her entire body trembled. This short elder was too much. He did not even check the sect leader's token and insisted that it was fake. He even tried to kill her immediately. The surrounding disciples also realized that something was wrong. No one dared to fake the sect leader's token. The short elder's insistence that the token was fake was obviously far-fetched. However, the moment the short elder arrived in front of Yun Chuyu, Toin, who had been standing behind Yun Chuyu, moved. Zhuan waved his right hand and pulled out the glorious amethyst galaxy sword. The glorious amethyst galaxy sword turned into a purple shadow and instantly pierced through the short elder's chest. Splurt! The short elder spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying by the glorious amethyst galaxy sword. He was pinned to the high platform. At this moment, the entire scene fell silent. Many disciples stared blankly at the short elder who was spitting out blood and had a pale face. The short elder was one of the 6 great elders of the sect. He was a powerful one-disaster true god. Now, he had been pierced through by the sword before he could even touch Yun Chuyu. Then, everyone's eyes fell on Zhuowen, who was behind Yun Chuyu. They were all trying to guess the origin and identity of this person. How dare you! Zhao Yin's eyes were gloomy. He stomped his right foot and a terrifying aura burst out. The other 4 elders followed closely behind Zhao Yin. They were aggressive. Yun Chuyu, you've gone too far. Not only have you taken out a fake sect leader's token, but you've also colluded with outsiders to usurp the position of sect leader. You're beyond redemption. Today, we 5 elders will teach the 3 of you a lesson on behalf of the Crepe Myrtle sect. Zhao Yin smiled coldly. He had been waiting for this moment. Zhao Yang had told him about Zhuan. This person was indeed powerful, but he was a 2 disasters true god and had the help of the 4 elders. He did not believe that this Zhuan was a match for the 5 of them. Zhuan stood quietly where he was. With a wave of his right hand, the glorious amethyst galaxy sword that had been pinned to the short elder's body fell back into his palm. The moment Zhao Yin and the other 4's divine senses fell on him, he slashed out with his right hand. The 5 divine senses instantly collapsed, and a terrifying destructive power affected the spirits of Zhao Yin and the other 4. The 5 of them were caught off guard and were immediately hit. Their bodies stiffened for a moment. In that short moment, Zhuan swept out from between the 5 of them like a ghost. 5 rays of sword light were like the most dazzling stars. They rose slowly, bringing with them 5 streams of blood. Bang, bang, bang. When Zhao Yin and the other 4 regained their senses, they all spat out a mouthful of blood and were sent flying. Their right hands had all been cut off. Chapter 1964. Cultivation and Plan. Zhuowen held his sword, indifferently glancing at the 5 people lying on the ground. With Zhuowen's current strength, killing the 5 of them wasn't difficult at all. However, they were elders of the Crepe Myrtle sect, and Yun Chuyu had sent him a message, telling him not to kill them. Therefore, he only chopped off one of their arms. Why haven't you come down yet? Zhuan looked at the dumbstruck Zhao Yang on the stage and said indifferently. Zhao Yang finally reacted. He got down from the stage, trembling as he knelt on the ground, not daring to say a word. Whether it was the short old man who had been sent flying by Zhuan or the 5 people whose arms had been chopped off, they were all elders of the Crepe Myrtle sect, representing the upper echelons and core experts of the Crepe Myrtle sect. However, the core experts of the Crepe Myrtle sect had been defeated in an instant. Zhao Yang knew that he didn't have the ability to resist this young man who wasn't much older than him. Miss Yun, you handle the rest. I've sealed the dantions of these 6 old farts. I'll return to the sect master's palace first. After saying that, Zhuan stomped his right foot and disappeared. The Crepe Myrtle sect had indeed declined. The core experts of the Crepe Myrtle sect couldn't withstand a single blow from Zhuowen, which made Zhuowen lack interest. On the contrary, the sect master of the Crepe Myrtle sect, Yin Bingyun, was a true expert. After hearing about the existence of the Extreme Dao True God realm, Yun had a new idea. According to Devour's inherited memories, it was very difficult to advance to the Void Sky realm. After Devour's cultivation reached the True God realm, the fighting strength it displayed was too terrifying. Therefore, it was rejected by the Starry Sky realm, making it difficult for Devour to advance. Of course, according to the inherited memories, there was indeed a powerful Devour who had successfully advanced to the Void Sky realm. At the Void Sky realm, Devour was extremely terrifying. Ordinary Void Sky experts weren't Devour's match. Devour wasn't even afraid of powerful Void Sky experts. From this, it could be seen how terrifying Devour was. Moreover, Yun vaguely knew from Devour's inherited memories that although Devour's population was small, It actually had a clan. However, Devour's clan origin was Devour clan Hedgewowen's the Void Sky realm. Zhuan Devour seemed to have been driven out by the clan Devour. It drifted in outer space. Sometimes, it would enter the heaven territory to hunt for food. It had been passed down from generation to generation until Zhuo Wen's current generation. Since it had happened so long ago, Devour couldn't remember much about it. Devour's Transin God Realm. Transin Realm. Transin. Transin Realm. Transin Yun Transin. Yun's Transin Yun. Transin. Moreover, he had learned a lot of information about the extreme Tao true gods from Yin Bingyun. Normally, after a cultivator became one of the extreme Tao true gods, they would think of ways to advance to the Void Sky realm. No one had ever stayed in the true god realm for more than 20,000 years. This was because no true god dared to undergo the three extreme calamities of extreme thunder, extreme fire, and extreme wind. For example, if a cultivator became true god extreme thunder, after he became a true god two calamities, he would not think about becoming true god extreme fire, much less become true god extreme wind when he was a true god three calamities. Because real god extreme thunder had already been rejected by the rule of galaxy. If one were to still want to become real god extreme fire or real god extreme wind, they would be completely rejected by galaxy. By then, the calamity that would descend upon them would be difficult for even an extreme way real god to resist. Such a lunatic had once appeared in the Great Brahma region. Back then, this lunatic had planned to become true god extreme thunder, extreme fire, and extreme wind at the same time. From there, he would fuse the three extreme powers and surpass the laws of the galaxy, creating a realm that wasn't weaker than the Void Sky 9 steps. This realm was called the Three Extremes by this madman. This madman was indeed gifted. He had become true god extreme thunder and extreme fire at the same time. Even some experts in the later stage of the Void Sky were afraid of his fighting power. However, after this madman underwent his 20th wind calamity at the True God Three Calamities realm, the entire galaxy instantly collapsed and shook the entire Great Brahma region. From then on, this madman disappeared without a trace. It was said that he had died in the wind calamity. This madman was the founder of the Crepe Myrtle sect, the Crepe Myrtle Star Monarch. In that era, any cultivator who heard of the Crepe Myrtle Star Monarch's name would turn pale at the mention of his name. In that era, the Crepe Myrtle galaxy was only a third-grade galaxy. However, even the top 10 sects in the core galaxy of the Great Brahma region didn't dare to provoke it. The ruler of the sky region of that era was even more courteous to the Crepe Myrtle Star Monarch and gave the Crepe Myrtle galaxy the same treatment as the top 10 sections. The reason why Zhuon knew about this was because of the jade slip that Yun Chuyu had given him regarding the sun and moon herb. This was because the genius who had obtained the sun and moon herb from the waning moons was the Crepe Myrtle Star Monarch. However, after the disappearance of the Crepe Myrtle Star Monarch, the Crepe Myrtle sect gradually declined and no more terrifying geniuses like the Crepe Myrtle Star Monarch appeared. Currently, Nguyen had his main body and Devour's doppelganger. His main body didn't plan to become an extreme grade true god. Instead, he planned to let his main body advance to the Void Sky realm. As for Devour's doppelganger, Yuan knew that it would be more advantageous for him to undergo the tribulation due to its powerful physical body. In addition, it was difficult for Devour to advance, so Yuan planned to let Devour's doppelganger become an extreme grade true god. If he was lucky enough to enter the extreme 3 realms, it might be as the Crepe Myrtle Star Monarch had said. He might possess a terrifying force that even the ruler of the sky region would be afraid of. After returning to the side palace, Yuan summoned his main body. After refining a star, his main body had completely advanced to the heavenly god realm. With the help of the Void Sky Bridge, his cultivation had reached the late stage of the heavenly god realm. It wouldn't be long before he reached the peak of the heavenly god realm. He had to admit that the Void Sky Bridge's energy was really powerful. If it weren't for the Void Sky Bridge, his main body wouldn't have been able to cultivate so fast. Sitting on the ground, his main body gazed at the black-robed Yuan and said, "Go." There are countless stars in the crepe myrtle galaxy. Go and absorb the star power of the stars in this galaxy. The black-robed Zhuowen nodded and left the place quietly. The black-robed Zhuowen was Devour's doppelganger. There were still a few years before the great interstellar competition that Yun Qiu had mentioned. Zhuowen planned to let the black-robed Zhuowen absorb the star power and advance to the true God realm as soon as possible. He was clear that once Devour advanced to the true God realm, his strength would increase greatly. If he encountered a truly powerful true God, he wouldn't be afraid. Moreover, he wouldn't be forced to flee by Wu Han and Luo Pengfei. This time, the black-robed Zhuowen only took Devour's doppelganger. He left his trump cards, such as the Torch Dragon Wings, the glorious Purple Galaxy Divine Sword, and the soul-absorbing Divine Needle, to his main body. My main body has to break through to the true God realm as soon as possible. When I do, I can ask Sect Master Yin about the star power. Zhuowen's eyes flickered. He didn't have much experience in advancing to the true God realm. Judging from the situation of his main body and Devour's doppelganger, his main body would probably advance to the true God realm first. After all, his main body only had a human body, and with the energy of the illusory heavenly bridge, he should be able to advance to the true God realm before the great interstellar competition. As for Devour's doppelganger, it was a little uncertain. This time, Yun Qiu had reorganized the crepe myrtle sect with thunderous means. She had imprisoned Zhao Yang and Zhao Yin in the sect's prison. As for the other 5 elders, they were punished by Yun Qiu to face the wall and reflect on their mistakes until the great interstellar competition. Yun Qiu did have some means. In just half a month, she had managed to tidy up the crepe myrtle sect, which was originally a little disorganized. At least, it was more lively than when it was under Zhao Yin's control. In the side hall, Zhuowen took out the communication jade charm and found that it was a message from Yun Qiu. The content of the message was about the great interstellar competition. It was said that the great interstellar competition was the grandest event in the great Brahma sky domain. In the entire sky domain, the forces of countless star systems would send their elite disciples to the core star areas. If they could achieve good results in the great interstellar competition, the star system behind them would also be upgraded by the master of the sky domain. Once they were valued by the 100 great sects in the star area, it would be a chance for them to soar to the sky. This time, Zhuowen's main task was to help the crepe myrtle sect maintain their second-grade star system position. If possible, he would help Yun Qiu join the 100 great sects in the star area. As long as he completed these tasks, Zhuowen knew that the favor he owed Yin Bingyun would be cleared. Has the date of the great interstellar competition been set? Since it's in 5 years, I hope that my main body can advance to the true God realm within these 5 years. Zhuowen put away the communication jade charm and immediately set up layers of formations and restrictions in the room. After making sure that no one could spy on him, he took out the illusory sky bridge and stepped on the first step of the illusory sky bridge. He began to constantly breathe in the illusory sky bridge's energy. At the same time, he absorbed the fire spirit juice to quickly break through to the next realm. This brat is really going all out. On the other side of the room, Xiao He looked at Zhuowen, who was sitting cross-legged on the Thunder Fire Sword's hilt and leisurely watching him cultivate. The Supreme Fire Sword kept circling around Xiao He like a happy child, constantly playing. Little blood disciple, take out some more fire spirit juice. I haven't taken a bath in a long time. Xiao He said leisurely. On the other side, the Blood Immortal sword transformed into the appearance of the Blood Immortal and quickly took out a large bucket of fire spirit juice from the spirit ring. She smiled obsequiously and said, "Dragon Master, please." Xiao He nodded and jumped into the fire spirit juice. He let out a comfortable sigh and closed his eyes. Little blood disciple, take a piece of the black-yellow mineral vein for me as an appetizer. Dragon Master, please enjoy. Xiao He patted the Blood Immortal's shoulder and said, "Not bad, not bad. Give me a massage and I'll reward you with a piece of the black-yellow mineral vein." The Blood Immortal's eyes lit up and she worked hard to massage Xiao He's back. Zhuowen, who was sitting on the illusory heavenly bridge, naturally saw the carefree Xiao He and was secretly envious. Xiao He was right. Weapon cultivators didn't have any bottlenecks. They only needed to absorb the energy and materials needed to refine weapons, and they could continuously advance. Xiao He wasn't polite to Zhuowen at all. He used the fire spirit juice for bathing and the black-yellow mineral vein for snacks. He didn't need to cultivate at all. But even so, Xiao He had already advanced to a low-grade true god weapon a few days ago. This made Zhuowen speechless. Plus, Xiao He had also refined the Supreme Fire Sword into a sword slave, which could unleash part of the Supreme Fire Sword's power. If the number of celestial gods and true gods exceeded the number of stars and galaxies, then what about the later generations? Do you know why the galaxies in the Qingyun realm are divided into 3 levels? Not only does it have to do with the cultivation of the Master of the Galaxy, but it also has an inseparable relationship with the number of true gods in the galaxy. Usually, a first-level galaxy can have a single-digit number of true gods, a second-level galaxy can have a double-digit number of true gods, and a third-level galaxy can have a triple-digit number of true gods. This involves the problem of the galaxy's origin. The stronger the galaxy's origin, the higher the upper limit of the number of true gods that the galaxy can cultivate. Among the 3 levels, the origin of a third-level galaxy is the strongest. Therefore, talented celestial gods in a third-level galaxy can rely on the powerful origin of the galaxy to become a true god. Yin Bingyun explained patiently, and Jun was suddenly enlightened. He thought to himself, so that's how it is. No wonder some galaxies have so many true gods. It seems that galaxies can cultivate more than one true god. Yin Bingyun glanced at Zhuowen and said, I see that your cultivation has reached the peak of the celestial god realm, and so has Chuyu. You can enter the Ziwei galaxy's origin to obtain the origin and prepare to become a true god. Thank you, sect leader Yin. Yuan clasped his fists and said. Yin Bingyun nodded and said with a smile, You're welcome. This time, our Ziwei galaxy only has 2 spots. Whether or not we can maintain our status as a second-level galaxy depends on the 2 of you. If you can both become a true god, we'll have a better chance of winning the galaxy tournament this time. Chuyu, take Xun to the Ziwei galaxy's origin. Yun Chuyu nodded and looked at Xun. Brother Zhuowen, come with me. As she said this, Yun Chuyu walked out of the main hall, and Zhuowen followed behind her. Sect leader. After Yun Chuyu walked out of the main hall, many disciples of the Crepe Myrtle sect along the way stared at Yun Chuyu in awe. Some of the sharp-eyed disciples even saw Zhuowen behind Yun Chuyu and were even more frightened. They did not dare to raise their heads to look at Zhuowen. A year ago, the scene of Zhuowen defeating the 6 elders of the Crepe Myrtle sect in an instant was deeply imprinted in the minds of many disciples of the Crepe Myrtle sect. Most of the disciples held a respectful attitude towards this young man named Zhun. Are you guest Elder Zhua who defeated Zhao Yin and the other 5 elders a year ago? Suddenly, a clear child's voice sounded. In front of Yun Chuyu, a boy who was half the height of a person had unknowingly walked over. This boy had 2 small buns on his head, and his face with baby fat was as delicate as a porcelain doll. He looked at Zhuowen with admiration in his eyes, and his expression was full of excitement. Xiang Chu, how can you be so rude in front of the sect leader and guest Elder Zhua? Come back here quickly. A reprimanding voice followed, and a young woman in white hurriedly picked up the boy and knelt on the ground. She did not dare to look at Zhuowen and said, Guest Elder Zhua, Xiang Chu is still young and does not know the rules. Please forgive him for his unintentional mistake. The little boy named Xiang Chu blinked his eyes and said rather innocently, Sister, guest Elder Zhua is not as scary as you say. Why are you so afraid? The young woman's delicate body trembled, and she raised her jade-like hand, wanting to slap the little boy's face, but was caught by Zhuowen. Guest Elder Zhua. Xiang Chu is still a child. The young woman trembled all over, tears welling up in her eyes. Zhuowen frowned slightly. He was a little surprised. This young woman and the other disciples of the Crepe Myrtle sect seemed to be very afraid of him. Could it be that he had done something unforgivable? Brother Zhua, ever since you pierced Elder Huang with your sword and cut off the arms of Zhao Yin and the other elders, the disciples of the crepe myrtle sect have been a little afraid of you. Later, rumors spread that you have a strange personality and that you are an elder who would cut off arms and legs at the slightest disagreement. Yun Chiu transmitted her voice softly, and Zhuowen frowned slightly, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He did not expect that after that incident, his reputation in the crepe myrtle sect would become so bad. He had become a ruthless person that everyone was afraid of. Zhuowen did not pay attention to the young woman, but looked at the boy and said with a smile, "Little guy, your sister and the others are afraid of me. Why aren't you afraid of me?" The boy looked innocently at Zhuowen and said in a clear voice, "Because Zhao Yin and Zhao Yang are big bad guys. Zhao Yang used to bully my sister, but Zhao Yin always protected her. My sister washes her face with tears every day. However, guest elder Zhuoyu came. You taught Zhao Yin and the others a lesson. Zhao Yin and the others are bad guys, so guest elder Zhuo must be a good person. When I grow up, I must be as strong as guest elder Zhuo." Zhuowen was startled, and then he gently rubbed the boy's head. He took out a bamboo branch that glowed with a colorful light from his spirit ring and handed it to the boy, saying, "Little Xiang Chu, as long as you have the heart to become strong, then you can become strong. When you grow up, I believe that you will be a top expert. In the future, don't call me guest elder Zhuo. Call me big brother Zhuo." As he spoke, Zhuowen passed by the young woman, and Yun Qiu looked at Zhuowen with a complicated gaze. She naturally recognized that bamboo branch that glowed with a colorful light. It was the level 4 divine medicine, the exquisite mother branch. It was a precious divine medicine that could strengthen one's foundation. If Xiang Chu could consume this exquisite mother branch from a young age, it could lay a solid foundation for his cultivation in the future. It could be said that Xiang Chu's lowest achievement in the future was to become a heavenly god, and it was even possible for him to become a true god. "You're really rich. You gave away a level 4 divine medicine just like that?" Yun Chuyu said sourly as they walked out of the sect. "That's what he deserves." Hun said indifferently, then changed the topic, saying, "Take me to the source of the galaxy. If it's possible, you and I may become true gods together before the grand tournament of the galaxy." Yun Chuyu nodded, turned into a long rainbow, and left the crepe myrtle sect with Chun. In the cold and gloomy space, there was a huge blue ball floating quietly. Around the blue ball, there was a misty blue mist-like body. This space was sealed. The surroundings seemed dark, but there was not a single flickering star. In the entire space, there was only this blue sphere surrounded by blue mist. This was the source space of the Ziwei galaxy. This space was extremely hidden in a black hole in the center of the Ziwei galaxy. Black holes were extremely dangerous because no one knew what kind of world the other side of the black hole led to. However, because the Ziwei galaxy had been refined and controlled by Yin Bingyun, the two of them entered this space without any danger by holding Yin Bingyun's personal token. From now on, let's cultivate here until we become true gods. If we still haven't become true gods before the grand tournament of the galaxy begins, then we can only give up and go to the grand tournament of the galaxy, Yun Chuyu said in a low voice. "Then let's go in." As Yun Chuyu spoke, she plunged into the blue mist-like body. Zhuowen did not hesitate and followed closely behind her. The moment he entered the mist-like body, Zhuowen felt an extremely comfortable feeling spread throughout his body. The moment this energy entered his body, it began to integrate into his meridians and the heavenly god power in his dantian. As this energy integrated into his body, Zhuowen acutely discovered that the heavenly god power in his body was transforming in a strange way. Zhuowen knew that under the influence of the source energy of this galaxy, his heavenly god power was transforming into true god power. Therefore, he immediately restrained his consciousness and began to concentrate on refining the source energy of the galaxy that had entered his body. Another year passed, and the source energy of the galaxy in this space had shrunk by about 1/10. It was also at this time that a terrifying and powerful aura suddenly burst out from the blue mist. A beautiful figure swept out from the depths of the mist. Her beautiful eyes were full of surprise as she murmured in a low voice, "I didn't expect to successfully become true gods in just 1 year. This time, I really have to thank Aunt for her real transformation divine pill. Chapter 1966. Sect Extermination. Brother Zhua hasn't come out yet? Yun Chuyu looked at the blue mist in front of her, her beautiful eyes twinkling. She sat cross-legged on the spot, waiting for Zhun. However, after waiting for 2 months, she found that the blue mist didn't move at all. Yun Chuyu shook her head and left a message for Zhuo Wen in the communication Jade Talisman. Then she left. Not long after Yun Chuyu left, the white-clothed Zhuowen slowly walked out. Kid, do you really want to summon Devour's clone to absorb the origin of this galaxy? That guy is a glutton. This origin of the purple micro-star galaxy can't satisfy him. The thunder fire sword hovered next to Zhuan, speaking helplessly. It shouldn't be that bad. After Yun Chuyu and I became true gods, we only consumed 1/10 of this galaxy's origin. Perhaps this origin can help Devour's clone become a true god. However, Zhuowen shook his head. He had actually become a true god earlier than Yun Chuyu, but he had used the all-lives formless technique to forcefully conceal his aura of breaking through so that he could leave this place after Yun Chuyu had broken through. Devour's clone had reached the peak of heavenly god a long time ago, but he couldn't break through to true god. It should be because of this galaxy's origin. How could Zhuan let go of this opportunity? After a while, the black-clothed Zhuowen appeared in this sealed space. The black-clothed Zhuowen and Zhuan exchanged looks and nodded. Then, Devour revealed his original form. He opened his mouth, sucking in the galaxy's origin like a whale sucking in water. Devour's absorption speed was much faster than Zhuowen's. In just 10 days he had swallowed half of the galaxy's origin. Zhuan was pleasantly surprised that Devour's aura had indeed improved. However, he was disappointed that even after absorbing half of the galaxy's origin, Devour was still a long way from becoming a true god. Devour is really terrifying. This purple micro-star galaxy's origin is enough to create more than 10 true gods, but to Devour, it only improved by a little. After absorbing half of the galaxy's origin, Yun stopped absorbing the origin and fell into deep thought. The origin of a grade 2 galaxy isn't enough for Devour. If Devour wants to reach the true god realm, I think he needs the origin of a grade 3 galaxy. Xiao He said in a low voice. Zhuan nodded, feeling a little begrudging. Devour was too monstrous. Did he have to break into a grade 3 galaxy to take the origin of the galaxy? We can only talk about this later. We can't rush Devour's advancement to the true god realm. Zhuan shook his head, retrieving the Devour clone. His real body stepped on the thunder flame sword, dashing out of this sealed space. Now, his host body had successfully become a true god. Although his fighting capacity wasn't as monstrous as Devour's, with the many trump cards he had, even if he didn't rely on Devour's clone, his fighting capacity could be compared to an ordinary 2-disaster true god. If his original body could survive more than 5 lightning disasters as a 1-calamity true god, his battle prowess would be even more terrifying. However, what annoyed Zhuowen was that if he wanted to survive more than 5 lightning disasters, wouldn't he have to stay at the 1-calamity true god realm for more than 2,500 years? Zhuowen hadn't cultivated for a long time, so 2,500 years wasn't too long for him. Let's go back to the Crepe Myrtle sect first. There are still more than 2 years before the interstellar competition. In the starry sky, Zhuowen muttered. He decided to go back to the Crepe Myrtle sect first. When Zhuowen returned to the Crepe Myrtle sect, he found something wrong. At this moment, the Crepe Myrtle sect was exceptionally quiet. The Crepe Myrtle square, which used to be bustling, was now empty. Everything was strange. Zhuowen frowned slightly. His huge consciousness spread out and swept through every corner of the Crepe Myrtle sect, but he found that there was no one in the Crepe Myrtle sect. It was as if the Crepe Myrtle sect had completely become a dead sect. Especially when Zhuowen's consciousness fell on the sect master's palace, he found that the 8 ice walls formed by the ice of the Phantom Rift Valley had disappeared. Even Yin Bingyun's figure had completely disappeared from the sect master's palace. What happened to the Crepe Myrtle sect? Zhuowen frowned, and there was an ominous premonition in his heart. Zhuowen seemed to have sensed something, and with a stomp of his right foot, he landed in front of a woodshed in the back mountain of the crepe myrtle sect. Opening the door of the woodshed, Zhuan smelled blood, and his brows furrowed. In front of the woodshed, there was a shabby Kong, and on the Kong, a small and thin figure tremblingly crawled out. Zhuan rushed to the front of the Kong bed and hugged the trembling figure. Only then did he realize that this figure was not unfamiliar to Zhuan. It was the innocent boy Xiang Chu that he and Yun Chuyu had met on the way out of the crepe myrtle sect. Big brother Zhua. Xiang Chu struggled to get up from the Kong, blood constantly gushing out of his mouth, and his life force was constantly fading. Zhuan immediately helped Xiang Chu up, his right hand pressed against his chest, and a surge of divine power protected Xiang Chu's heart. Unfortunately, Xiang Chu's life force had been completely cut off. The reason he was still alive was because of his stubborn belief. Zhuan's eyes revealed a trace of sadness. He knew that he could not save Xiang Chu now, and at the same time, there was a trace of anger rising in his heart. Who was it that would be so cruel to a boy? Big brother Zhua, save my sister. She said that if you don't work for it, you shouldn't take it. I know I was wrong. Can you help me find my sister? I only have one sister, and she is my only family. The originally stubborn Xiang Chu tremblingly took out the exquisite mother branch that Zhuan had given him and handed it to Zhuan. I don't dare to disobey my sister anymore. Big brother Zhua, do you know? My sister is not afraid of you, but respects you. Because you defeated Elder Zhao Yin and the others, my sister no longer has to suffer their torture and difficulties. But she doesn't dare to look at you, because she feels that she is too inferior, too far away from you. So she doesn't dare to look at you, and she doesn't know what to do. Unfortunately, before Xiang Chu could finish his words, the Linglong mother branch fell to the ground, and his outstretched right hand hung limply by his side. Big brother Zhua, I'm sorry, I can't become the expert you said. Zhuan gently caught the exquisite mother branch. He quietly looked at the lifeless Xiang Chu, but there was a raging fire rising in his heart. Although Zhuan and Xiang Chu had not known each other for a long time, but Xiang Chu's innocent smile, as well as his longing to become stronger, was still vivid in Zhuan's mind. Zhuan did not think that, only a year had passed, when he saw Xiang Chu again, Xiang Chu had died in front of him. Xiang Chu, don't worry, Big brother Zhuo will help you take revenge and also help you find your sister. Zhuan murmured, his right hand reaching into Xiang Chu's forehead, and a powerful divine sense entered into Xiang Chu's sea of consciousness. Although Xiang Chu had died, but his memory had not dissipated. Zhuan wanted to see what had happened to the crepe myrtle sect. When Zhuan withdrew his right hand, the killing intent in his eyes surged out like a storm as he murmured, Lei Qi. At the moment of the catastrophe of the crepe myrtle sect, Xiang Chu and his sister were still chopping wood in the wooden door. Later, a man flashing with lightning came from the starry sky and appeared in the crepe myrtle sect. This person did not say anything. As soon as he appeared, he threw out a series of lightning arcs. The majority of the crepe myrtle sect disciples in the crepe myrtle square were struck by the lightning arcs and turned to ashes. In an instant, the crepe myrtle sect was in chaos. Many of the crepe myrtle sect disciples were all panicking, and some of the stronger experts of the crepe myrtle sect took the initiative to attack the man. Unfortunately, the crepe myrtle sect experts who took the initiative to attack did not even get close to the man before they were wrapped in a series of terrifying lightning arcs and eventually turned to dust and ashes. Xiang Chu's sister hid Xiang Chu in the brick bed, and after giving a few instructions to Xiang Chu, she left the wooden door. Then Xiang Chu hid in the brick bed, trembling as he listened to the screams outside. He did not know if the man did it deliberately, but at the same time as he was killing the crepe myrtle sect disciples, an imperceptible thread of lightning entered the gap of resistance and drilled into Xiang Chu's body, completely annihilating the life force in Xiang Chu's body. The reason why Xiang Chu was able to hold on until now was because he wanted to find his sister. Until Zhuan found him, Xiang Chu entrusted this belief to Zhuan, and death quietly came. And the most profound memory in Xiang Chu's mind was when Yin Bingyun came out of the Patriarch's palace for the first time, bringing along the power of the illusory Rift Valley ice and powerful fire, and pounced on the man. And at that moment Yin Bingyun shouted, "Lei Qi, stop, what are you doing? Destroy the crepe myrtle sect, take you away." The man's words were concise and comprehensive, and then he began to fight with Yin Bingyun. Unfortunately, Xiang Chu's injuries at that time were too serious, his vision blurred, and eventually he lost consciousness, until Zhuowen found him. Gently burying Xiang Chu in the soil in front of the crepe myrtle sect's patriarch's palace, and buried the exquisite mother branch together with Xiang Chu's body, Zhuowen floated in the air. He knew that the crepe myrtle sect had been destroyed, and even many of the crepe myrtle sect disciples did not know why someone came to destroy them. But Zhuowen knew, because the person Lei Qi was looking for was the patriarch of the crepe myrtle sect, Yin Bingyun. But of all things, Lei Qi should not have involved the entire crepe myrtle sect. Lei Qi only needed to take Yin Bingyun away, but he did not do so, and instead chose to destroy the sect. Perhaps in Lei Qi's eyes, all the disciples of the crepe myrtle sect were just ants. If he wanted to kill them, he would kill them. At this moment, Zhuowen once again felt the cold-bloodedness of this world of cultivation. The weak were destined to become the stones under the feet of the strong, not to be stepped on, but to be trampled, and their lives could not be controlled. "Zhuowen, are you looking for Lei Qi? Don't be impulsive, that Lei Qi is not even Yin Bingyun's opponent, and is an extremely powerful existence in the virtual sky world. Aren't you courting death by going to find him?" Xiao He suddenly blocked Zhuowen's path. Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy, and just as he was about to speak, he suddenly raised his head and found that several powerful auras were rushing in their direction. Chapter 1967. Shui Han. 3 rainbows instantly landed in the sky above the crepe myrtle sect. These 3 rainbows were the 3 teams, and the leaders of the teams were all 2 calamity true gods. These 3 true gods were much stronger than the great elder of the crepe myrtle sect, and the fire aura on their bodies was much stronger than that of ordinary 2 calamity true gods. They were at least powerful 2 calamity true gods who had experienced at least 5 fires. A bald man glanced indifferently at the surviving Zhuowen of the crepe myrtle sect, but did not care. The aura on Zhuowen was not strong, and was only a 1 calamity true god. For the bald man, a 1 calamity true god was just an ant, and could be destroyed with a wave of his hand. The bald man turned his head to look at the leaders of the other 2 rainbows, and said with a smile, "Scholar Swan, Miss Jing Shui, why did you 2 come so timely?" At the head of the other rainbow was a man in a white robe who was dressed like a scholar. He glanced at the bald man and said, "We came here the same way you came here." And the other young woman, whose aura was not weaker than the white-robed man and the bald man, said with a smile, "Didn't you 2 come because of the news from Lord Lei Qi? I don't believe you would come at such a coincidence." The white-robed man and the bald man both nodded. The reason they came to the crepe myrtle sect was indeed because of the news that Lei Qi suddenly sent. And the content of the news was that the crepe myrtle sect had been destroyed. In addition, their 3 major galaxies were the closest to the crepe myrtle sect. Although Lei Qi's words were concise, the meaning was obvious. That was, the crepe myrtle galaxy was handed over to them, and the 3 of them could have it. In just an instant, the 3 people's eyes showed unfriendliness, and were secretly wary of each other. "Ha! You 2, you don't have to be like this. The crepe myrtle sect has been destroyed, and with Lord Lei Qi's vision and strength, the crepe myrtle sect's assets are definitely not ordinary, but for the 3 of us, the things of the crepe myrtle sect are extremely extraordinary. How about this, the things of the crepe myrtle sect? How about the 3 of us divide them equally? This way, we don't have to quarrel over this matter and become unhappy." The bald man laughed, looking at the white-robed man and the young woman. The white-clothed man and the young woman both revealed a hesitant expression. The strength of the 3 of them was about the same. If they were to fight, they would not be able to gain any advantage at all. It was even possible that both sides would be injured. If they could solve the problem peacefully, they would naturally be more than happy to do so. Zhuowen looked at the bald man and the other 2 without saying a word, but the murderous intent in his eyes surged. Although he had not been in the crepe myrtle sect for long, and did not have any sense of belonging to the crepe myrtle sect, But when he saw Xiang Chu die in front of him, and heard the words Xiang Chu said before he died, Zhuowen's heart was touched. Zhuowen had heard Yun Chu mention the 3 people in front of him before. These 3 people were the rulers of the 3 galaxies not far from the Ziwei galaxy. The bald man was the sect master of the mountain-shaking sect in the mountain-shaking galaxy, Shirhan. The white-robed scholar was the sect master of the Book Ocean galaxy's Book Ocean sect, Ni Bushua. As for the young woman, she was the sect master of the Acacia galaxy's Acacia sect, Jing Shui. These 3 galaxies were second-class galaxies, and the strength of these 3 people was not weak. Although they were also true gods of 2 disasters, they were not ordinary true gods of 2 disasters. Their strength was most likely comparable to an ordinary true god of 3 disasters. At this moment, Shirhan, Ni Bushue, and Jing Shui had decided to divide the Crepe Myrtle galaxy equally. After the discussion, the bald man looked again at Zhuowen, who was motionless like a statue, and said, "Get lost, or you won't have a chance later." Zhuowen raised his head, looked at Shirhan, and said, "I want to ask you, when did Lei Qi destroy the Crepe Myrtle sect?" Shirhan was stunned. He did not expect that Zhuowen would not only not get lost, but also question him, which made him furious. "Looking at you, you should be a disciple of the Crepe Myrtle sect, right? Tsk, what a pitiful worm, you don't even know when your sect was destroyed." Speaking of this, Shirhan's eyes were cold, and there was a burst of murderous intent. "Also, I, Shirhan, usually only give people one chance. Since you don't cherish it, then you won't have another chance. Wu Ju, kill this boy. Since the Crepe Myrtle sect has been destroyed, you should also follow and meet the disciples of the Crepe Myrtle sect in the underworld. The answer you want they all know." As Shirhan spoke, a young man with a cold expression walked out from behind him. The young man's cultivation was not bad, reaching the level of a true god of 1 disaster, and this person had the aura of a thunder disaster, apparently a true god of 1 disaster who had survived a thunder disaster. "Remember, the name of the person who will kill you is Wu Ju." The young man licked his lips, his eyes revealing a bloodthirsty light, and his figure disappeared into the void like a ghost. Sush. Zhuowen was still standing in the same place, and Wu Ju had unknowingly swept behind him, and there was a cold dagger in his hand. The tip of the dagger was pointed in the direction of the back of Zhuowen's head. Obviously, Wu Ju intended to kill Zhuowen in one blow and completely annihilate his spirit. Such a method could not be described as not vicious. The corners of Shui Han's mouth curled up, and he looked down at Zhuowen condescendingly. He knew that in the next moment, the young man in front of him would immediately become a cold corpse. Ni Bushue and Jing Shui were expressionless, and they did not even have the interest to look at Zhuowen. They were now thinking about how to divide the Crepe Myrtle galaxy to their advantage. Pucci. Suddenly, a bloody mist erupted behind Zhuowen, followed by a scream. Wu Ju's right hand, which was holding the dagger, had been cut off. "Remember, the name of the person who will kill you is Zhuowen." Zhuowen held the glorious purple galaxy divine sword, and looked indifferently at Wu Ju, who was clutching his severed arm, with a face full of fear. His right hand slashed out, and a purple sword light burst out, turning into a purple bridge in midair. Wu Ju wanted to dodge, but unfortunately, the sword light was too fast, and his body was directly pierced through by the purple bridge. Then, his whole body exploded into a bloody mist, and his body was destroyed. Shui Han's face suddenly froze, and Ni Bushue and Jing Shui, who were originally not paying attention, also turned their attention to Zhuowen for the first time. "I like to give people 2 chances, and you wasted one, so you still have 1 chance. Now, let me ask you again, when was the Crepe Myrtle destroyed?" Zhuowen held the sword in his right hand, his white robe fluttering, and his eyes fell on Shui Han, who had an ugly face. Shui Han trembled with anger. He was a dignified second-grade galaxy master, and yet he was being questioned by a true god. What was even more infuriating was that this true god was so arrogant that he dared to threaten to give him another chance, which was really ridiculous. "Kill him." Shui Han's voice was full of killing intent, and the 5 subordinates behind him rushed out and rushed toward Zhuowen. This time, Shui Han had brought 6 subordinates, all of whom were true gods. After Wu Ju was killed, there were only 5 left. The 5 of them were quite strong, and 4 of them were true gods of one calamity, while the strongest one had reached the level of a true god. With such a lineup, even an ordinary real god of 2 calamities might die under the siege of such a lineup. Well, you have no more chances. Zhuowen's eyes were cold, and he slashed out with his sword. Sword shadows swirled, turning into sword shadows and thorns, like countless snake shadows, and surrounded the 5 of them. Now that Zhuowen had become a true god, the power of the destruction sword principle that he could unleash was extremely strong, and the sword piercing through thorns alone was much stronger than before. The 5 of them were caught off guard and were extremely embarrassed by the sword piercing through thorns. On the other hand, Zhuowen was strolling leisurely, slowly shuttling through the thorns. His speed was extremely fast, and one could only vaguely see a purple shadow. Puff! Amidst the purple shadow, there was a purple sword light. The sword light was like lightning, and it shuttled through the 5 of them, splattering blood light. Then heads burst out. The moment the purple shadow passed through the thorns, Zhuowen put away his sword, and the 5 heads flew off, and blood rained down like rain. Shui Han's face was filled with shock, and he stared at Zhuowen. 5 true gods teamed up, and one of them was a true god of 2 calamities. Yet, they couldn't even take 1 hit from him. What kind of monster was he? He was only a true god of 1 calamity, but he killed true gods like they were dogs. Enai Bushue and Jing Shui were also shocked. They couldn't understand why the young man in front of them, who was only a true god of 1 calamity, could unleash such terrifying fighting power. It was simply against nature. It's your turn now. Yun turned his head, and his eyes were as cold as a demon's. Looking at Zhuowen's cold eyes, Shui Han's heart quivered, and there was fear. He actually showed fear when facing a true god of 1 calamity. It was something that he had never imagined before. Wait, if you have something to say, let's talk about it. I think you should be here for the Crepe Myrtle sect. Why don't we share the Crepe Myrtle star system equally with you? Shui Han quickly said. The fighting power that Zhuowen had displayed was not weaker than his, and it was even a little beyond his expectations. Hence, he didn't dare to fight him head-on. I said that I gave you 2 chances, but you didn't take them. Then I'm sorry, you don't have any more chances now. Zhuowen simply ignored Shui Han's words, and with a kick of his right foot, he stabbed out with his sword, and used, beginning sword light appears. A ray of sword light, like a rising sun, swept toward Shui Han's glabella at an extremely fast speed. Shui Han was shocked and angry. He knew that the young man in front of him was determined to fight with him. Thinking of this, Shui Han's eyes revealed a murderous intent, and he took out a broadsword inlaid with a golden ring. Raging waves break. Shui Han took a deep breath, raised the broadsword above his head, and immediately slashed down. Terrifying golden light emerged, and the surrounding tens of millions of feet was unknowingly covered by an endless golden sea. Enai Bushue and Jing Shui both led their teams and retreated tens of millions of feet away. They looked at the scene in shock. They naturally knew that raging waves break was Shui Han's strongest move. Now that Shui Han had used this move, it was obvious that this person was a great threat to Shui Han, and he had no choice but to use this move. A golden broadsword fell from the sky and slashed the surface of the golden sea. Then the huge golden sea was divided into 2, and terrifying golden waves that were tens of thousands of feet high were set off one after another. Chapter 1968. Mountain Shaking Sect. Although Shui Han's saber aura was like a rainbow, shocking the heavens and earth, Zhuowen was not afraid. Zhuowen had even killed Song Jiahao, a true god of 3 disasters, so how could he be afraid of Shui Han? Not to mention that Shui Han was on par with Song Jiahao. Even if Shui Han was stronger than Song Jiahao, Zhuowen was not afraid at all. Raging waves breaking waves is too terrifying. Even if this person doesn't die, he will be seriously injured. Jing Shui judged expressionlessly. Although Enai Bushue did not say anything, from the sneer on the corner of his mouth, it could be seen that his thoughts were the same as Jing Shui's. The golden blade finally fell, smashing into the bottom of the Golden Sea. Zhuowen raised the glorious amethyst galaxy sword in his right hand, and a purple moon rose. The purple moon rose higher and higher, broke through the Golden Sea, and slammed into the falling golden blade. Boom! The purple moon and the golden blade collided, setting off a purple-gold storm. Then, Shui Han was shocked to find that the golden blade had collapsed, and the purple moon had risen in front of him as if it had teleported. No, Shui Han only managed to say this sentence before the purple moon pierced through his body, and he collapsed into nothingness. What? Enai Bushue and Jing Shui both trembled, their eyes fixed on Shui Han's collapsed body, their faces full of disbelief. Zhuowen withdrew his sword, his eyes calm, as if killing Shui Han was a trivial matter. Then Zhuowen looked at Enai Bushue and Jing Shui, who were still in shock, and said indifferently, "You also have 2 chances. When was Crepe Myrtle's sect destroyed by Lei Qi? Where's Lei Qi now?" Enai Bushue and Jing Shui both trembled, their eyes full of fear. Now that Zhuowen asked again, the 2 of them did not dare to neglect or even look down on him. "Senior, Crepe Myrtle's sect was destroyed 3 days ago, because we received news of Senior Lei Qi 3 days ago," Enai Bushue hurriedly said. Although Zhuowen's aura was only that of a first calamity true divinity, since this person could easily kill Shui Han, he was most likely not an ordinary cultivator. Thus, it was normal for him to address him as Senior. As for Senior Lei Qi's whereabouts, we don't know. However, Senior Lei Qi is an expert of the dark fantasy sect, one of the top 10 sects in the core star field of the Great Brahma domain. She should have returned by now, right? Jing Shui quickly added. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. Then do you know why Lei Qi wanted to destroy the Crepe Myrtle sect? Enai Bushue and Jing Shui exchanged a glance. Then Enai Bushue said in a deep voice, "It seems to be because of the Crepe Myrtle sect's sect master Yin Bingyun. I remember that when Senior Lei Qi passed by our Sea of Books galaxy, he took Yin Bingyun with him." Zhuowen took a deep breath. He knew that the reason Lei Qi came to the Crepe Myrtle sect was because of Yin Bingyun. It seemed that what Yin Bingyun said was true. Now, Zhuowen was a little worried about Yin Bingyun. Although he did not have much contact with Yin Bingyun, and Yin Bingyun was quite scheming, Zhuowen was actually quite sincere towards him. Otherwise, he would not have taken out so many glorious amethyst galaxy divine sand. Moreover, Zhuowen did not know the fate of Yun Chuyu and Xiao Tong. He did not know if the 2 of them had fallen. "What's Lei Qi's cultivation like?" Zhuowen asked. Enai Bushue and Jing Shui had a strange look in their eyes. Lei Qi's reputation in the Great Brahma domain was not weak, but the young man in front of them seemed to know nothing about Lei Qi. "We don't know exactly what Senior Lei Qi's cultivation is, but I know that he has at least reached the supreme realm of the Void Sky 5th step." When Enai Bushue said this, his eyes were full of yearning and envy. For true gods like them, advancing to the Void Sky realm was already very difficult, let alone reaching the Void Sky 5th step. It was simply an extravagant hope. After all, the Void Sky Bridge condensed by the virtual sky world was not so easy to climb. Each step was more difficult and terrifying than the previous one. If one was not careful, they could end up dying miserably. Generally, those who could reach the Void Sky 5th step were all peerless geniuses. After all, the virtual sky world was considered a powerhouse in the heaven domain. Very few people dared to provoke them. Void Sky 5th step, creation, Zhuowen frowned slightly. Ever since he inherited the inheritance of the Void Sky powerhouse in the Burning Cloud region, Zhuowen's understanding of the virtual sky world was clearer than ordinary true gods. In the virtual sky world, the difference between each level was like heaven and earth. The Void Sky 5th step, creation, and 10,000 years equal to heaven cultivators could kill them as easily as crushing an ant. Previously, when Zhuowen faced Wu Han and Luo Pengfei from the Brahmin Fiend Star, he could only flee in embarrassment, let alone Lei Qi. At this moment, Zhuowen also calmed down. He knew that with his current strength, if he went to look for Lei Qi, he would be courting death. Enai Bushue and Jing Shui looked at Zhuowen anxiously. They didn't know how Zhuowen would deal with them. After seeing Shui Han's fate, the 2 of them really didn't have the courage to go against the young man in front of them. If the young man in front of them really attacked them, the two of them probably wouldn't end up any better than Shui Han. Now, the two of you have two choices. 1. Hand over 80% of your galaxy's origin. 2. Die. Zhuan looked at the two of them and said indifferently. Enai Bushue and Jing Shue's expressions were unsightly. They didn't expect the young man in front of them to be so greedy and ask for 80% of their galaxy's origin. It should be known that their galaxy's origin was enough to create more than 10 true gods, but if Zhuan took away 80% of their origin, it would be difficult for their galaxy to produce more true gods in the future. However, they had no choice but to comply with Zhuan's request because Zhuan was too powerful. If they didn't hand over their origin, they would die. Between origin and life, the two of them resolutely chose the latter. Next, Zhuan, led by Enai Bushue and Jing Shui, went to their respective galaxies. Fortunately, the two galaxies weren't far from each other. It was only a 4-hour journey. After taking 80% of the origin from the two galaxies, Zhuan learned the location of the mountain-shaking galaxy from Jing Shui and left. This guy's appetite is really big. He actually asked for 80% of our galaxy's origin. This will have a big impact on our galaxy. Jing Shui said, gnashing her teeth. Enai Bushue's face was also quite gloomy. His eyes flickered and he transmitted his voice to Jing Shui. This person probably has some relationship with the Crepe Myrtle sect. Why don't we kill him with a borrowed knife? Jing Shui was startled, but she quickly reacted and replied, Brother Enai, you mean Lei Qi? The corners of Enai Bushue's mouth curled up slightly and he nodded gently. Zhuan stood in front of the mountain-shaking galaxy. The shape of the mountain-shaking galaxy was like a huge hill, which was quite appropriate for the name of the galaxy. Zhuan's gaze fell on the mountain-shaking sect in the center of the mountain-shaking galaxy. The mountain-shaking sect was located on a huge hill. The hill was larger than an ordinary planet and was surrounded by clouds and mist. The higher one went, the thicker the clouds and mist. It looked a little like a fairyland. Zhuan stepped forward and soon landed in the sky above the mountain-shaking sect. Only then did he realize that the clouds and mist on the surface of the mountain-shaking sect were actually a very powerful restriction formation. Break! Zhuan condensed divine power in his right hand, turned it into a palm, and slammed it heavily on the restriction formation on the surface of the mountain-shaking sect. Rumble! Suddenly, the clouds and mist on the surface of the entire mountain-shaking sect began to tremble violently. The huge mountain shook violently and countless rocks fell from the top of the mountain. What's going on? Someone is attacking the sect's great array. How dare they? Who is it? How dare you behave so atrociously in my mountain-shaking sect? A series of curses came from the mountain-shaking sect. Then, Zhuan saw the clouds and mist on the peak of the mountain-shaking sect disperse, and an old man in a wide robe swept out. Behind the old man was a group of experts from the mountain-shaking sect, who stared coldly at Tun. Why are you attacking my mountain-shaking sect? The old man stared at Zhuan with some fear. He was an arcane god master of the mountain-shaking sect, so he could sense how powerful Zhuan's palm was. Although the young man in front of him only had the aura of a one-calamity true god, the old man knew that he should not be simple, so he did not attack Zhuan immediately. I am a guest elder of the Crepe Myrtle sect. Your mountain-shaking sect's leader, Shui Han, personally went to the Crepe Myrtle sect in order to obtain the foundation and resources of my Crepe Myrtle sect. He acted presumptuously in front of me and was killed by me. If your mountain-shaking sect knows what's good for you, then open the sect's great array. Zhuan's eyes were calm, but the words he said were not believed by the crowd. They all thought that Zhuan was bragging. Their mountain-shaking sect's leader, Shui Han, was a two-calamity true god who had survived 5 fires. He was not an ordinary two-calamity true god. How could he be killed so easily? Zhuan shook his head. He knew that these experts of the mountain-shaking sect would not believe him, so he did not talk nonsense. He took out the glorious amethyst galaxy sword and slashed out. A purple light soared into the sky and a purple moon rose. Rumble! At this moment, the mountain-shaking sect trembled so violently that it reached an earth-shattering level. Within the sect, Countless disciples were lying on the ground, shivering. Gotcha. Cracks appeared on the surface of the seal, and the cracks continued to expand until it finally shattered. He actually broke my seal. The old man's eyes widened. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The young man in front of him was too terrifying. He did not know that even the mountain-shaking sect's leader, Shui Han, might not be able to break the sect's great array, but it was broken by this kid. This person wants to destroy our mountain-shaking sect. As the disciples of the mountain-shaking sect, we must not sit still and wait for death. Hurry up and kill this person. Suddenly, someone shouted from within the crowd. Everyone, who had been in a daze due to the great sect formation, immediately regained their senses. After being instigated by this person, many experts and disciples of the mountain-shaking sect pounced toward Zhuowen with red eyes. Wait, you are not his opponent. The old man reacted and hurriedly stopped the people of the mountain-shaking sect. Unfortunately, there were too many disciples of the mountain-shaking sect. His words were drowned out by the voices of the crowd. Chapter 1969. Intimidating with Zhuowen's powerful consciousness, he naturally sensed the instigator who retreated. When he said he would kill Shui Han, he clearly felt the anger and hatred in the person's eyes. It was obvious that this person had a close relationship with Shui Han. Zhuowen released the flaming beast. The flaming beast roared and terrifying flames surrounded its body. It stomped on the ground and shot into the distance like a gust of wind. Wherever the flaming beast passed, the mountain-shaking sect disciples would vomit blood and be sent flying. Occasionally, there would be a few one-disaster true gods, but they were all knocked away by Zhuowen's sword and continued forward. Bang, bang, bang. In just a short while, all the mountain-shaking sect disciples who blocked the way were blasted to the foot of the mountain. Most of them were seriously injured and some even had their limbs broken. Seeing how terrifying the flaming beast was, the mountain-shaking sect disciples behind all scattered and did not dare to block Zhuowen and the flaming beast. Without the obstruction of the mountain-shaking sect disciples, the flaming beast's speed was much faster. In an instant, it was in front of the instigator. What are you doing? This person looked to be in his 30s. His eyes were gloomy and his appearance was somewhat similar to Shui Han, who was killed by him. Instigating the mountain-shaking sect disciples to their deaths. What do you think I'm doing? Zhuowen mocked. This has nothing to do with me. Before this person could finish his words, he felt a pain in his dantian. Soon after, his dantian was crippled by Zhuowen. This is just a small punishment. If there is a next time, don't blame me for starting a massacre. Zhuowen casually threw this person to the side and coldly looked around. The surrounding mountain-shaking sect disciples couldn't help but lower their heads, not daring to look at Zhuowen. The mountain-shaking sect disciples only felt fear. They didn't even have the heart to pity the man whose dantian was crippled by Zhuowen. Senior, you shouldn't implicate the family. Since Shui Han offended you, he deserved to die. Please don't implicate the mountain-shaking sect disciples. The old man in a wide robe hurriedly stepped forward. Although he was old, he still addressed Zhuowen as senior. In this world of martial arts, seniority was not respected. As long as you were strong enough, even if you were only a few hundred years old, those old monsters who were thousands of years old would have no choice but to call you senior. I only came to your mountain-shaking sect for one thing, and that is the mountain-shaking galaxy's quintessence, Zhuowen said calmly. The old man in the wide robe shuddered, but he secretly complained in his heart. He didn't expect this person to come here to take away the galaxy's source. The origin of a galaxy was the most important thing to a galaxy. It was the key to the prosperity of the galaxy. After all, the stronger the origin, the more true gods the galaxy could produce. The more true gods there were, the higher the probability of a void sky expert appearing among them. Now, this person wanted to take away the origin source of the mountain-shaking galaxy. This request could be said to be extremely excessive, but there was nothing he could do. This person had the power to destroy their galaxy. The Book Ocean Galaxy and the Acacia Galaxy have already obediently handed over their origin source. Does your mountain-shaking galaxy intend to refuse? Zhuan said calmly. The old man in the wide robe sighed softly and said, Sir, how much of the origin source do you want from our mountain-shaking galaxy? 99%. The rest will be left for your mountain-shaking galaxy to maintain its operation, Zhuan said calmly. Sir, 99%? The old man in the wide robe wanted to refuse, but Zhuan glared at him coldly. The current situation forced him to agree. Sir, please wait a moment. This old man will go and get the galaxy's origin source. The old man in the wide robe cupped his hands, but Zhuan refused. Zhuan said, No need. Just take me there. I will go and get it myself. The old man in the wide robe sighed and could only agree. Standing in front of the mountain-shaking galaxy's origin source, Zhuan silently looked at the hill-shaped origin source and nodded in his heart. It seemed that every galaxy's origin source had a different appearance. The North Star origin source was spherical, the Book Ocean galaxy's origin source was book-shaped, and the Acacia galaxy's origin source was shaped like a man and a woman entwined together. Zhuan stomped his right foot and rushed in front of the hill-shaped origin source. He slashed out with the glorious amethyst galaxy sword in his hand and directly cut off the top of the hill. Then, he waved his sleeve and put the origin source below the top of the hill into his spirit ring. The old man in the wide robe's eyelids twitched and his heart ached. He knew that with such a small amount of origin source, it would be impossible for the mountain-shaking galaxy to give birth to a true god in the future. By the way, tell me about the arcane divine masters. After putting away the origin source, Zhuan looked at the old man in the wide robe and said, his original body had successfully become a celestial saint master and was not far from becoming an arcane divine master. Since this old man in the wide robe was an arcane divine master, he naturally had to ask properly. He could sense that there were strong and weak arcane priests. At least, he felt that this old man was weaker than the arcane priest who was in charge of the Shenhuang mineral vein in the Song family on the Brahma fiend planet. This could be compared from the arcane priest's formation. The old man in the wide robe was furious. This person was too much. After taking away 99% of the mountain-shaking galaxy's origin source, he still asked him about the arcane divine masters as if nothing had happened. However, when Zhuan took out 10 palm-sized bottles of fire spirit juice, the old man in the wide robe's face instantly disappeared and was replaced by surprise. It's actually fire spirit juice and 10 bottles at once. The old man in the wide robe quickly put away the fire spirit juice. After checking with his divine sense, his eyes were filled with excitement. Fire spirit juice was quite useful to any cultivator. Not only could it increase the chances of becoming a true god, but it could also temporarily increase the power of understanding. This made the fire spirit juice in great demand among many cultivators. However, there was very little fire spirit juice. It was the kind that had a price but no market. Therefore, although the old man in the wide robe had a good foundation, he didn't have any fire spirit juice on him. Lord is so generous. Actually, arcane divine masters are divided into 10 levels. Level 1 God Master is the lowest and level 10 God Master is the strongest. Of course, arcane divine master is only the name in the mortal world. The real name in the heaven domain should be Formation Divine Master. The old man in the wide robe seemed very enthusiastic. Zhuan pondered for a moment, then looked at the old man and asked, "What level are you?" The old man in the wide robe blushed and said, "I'm not talented enough. I've cultivated my soul for 10,000 years and have only reached level 2 God Master." Zhuan nodded. He was shocked by the power of this Formation Divine Master. The formation that a level 2 God Master had spent a lot of effort to set up could trap most of the 2 disaster true gods. If it weren't for Zhuowen's fighting strength that far surpassed ordinary true gods, he wouldn't have been able to break the mountain-shaking sect's great formation. Lord, this is what I've learned from my years of cultivation. I see that you're interested in the Formation Divine Master, so I'll give it to you. After receiving the 10 bottles of fire spirit juice, the old man in the wide robe immediately forgot that Zhuan had seized 99% of the mountain-shaking galaxy's origin. He was very enthusiastic toward Zhuan. After receiving the jade slip from the old man, Yuan nodded and left the mountain-shaking galaxy. Let's go back to the Z-Way galaxy first. The Z-Way galaxy still has half of its origin. I can swallow it into Devour's body and let Heavenly Armor Star Ryuka manage it. Yuan muttered. Shortly after, he arrived at the Z-Way galaxy. Yuan summoned the Black-Robed Juon. The Black-Robed Juon didn't say anything, revealing Devour's real body. He opened his mouth, and a spiral black hole appeared in his mouth. An earth-shaking devouring power was transmitted from the black hole. The black hole swept out and grew bigger. Eventually, it covered the entire Z-Way galaxy. When Lei Qi came to destroy the sect, she didn't only destroy the Crepe Myrtle sect, but also all the lives on the life planets in the Z-Way galaxy. It was a ruthless move. Thus, when Juon revealed Devour's real body to swallow the Z-Way galaxy, he didn't think it was inappropriate. After all, there was no one around the Z-Way galaxy. After swallowing the Z-Way galaxy into his body, Devour resumed the black-robed Juon's appearance, while the white-robed Juon quietly entered Devour's body. On the Guqin mountain of the Heavenly Armor Star, Yuan Hongwen, Long Xiaotian, Feng Shiyao, and the others were hovering outside the Heavenly Armor Star. When they saw the entire galaxy around them, they were all shocked. Is it the entire galaxy? Juon has swallowed the entire galaxy? Isn't it too terrifying? Yuan Hongwen smacked his lips and froze on the spot. The other people's expressions weren't any better. Jun, Long Xiaotian and Feng Shiyao saw the white-robed Juon, immediately walking forward to greet him. Looking at the caring faces of Long Xiaotian and Feng Shiyao, Yuan felt warmth in his heart. He said, "Father, Mother, and everyone else, this is the Z-Way galaxy. In the future, you can enter this galaxy to cultivate. There are many life planets here. If you become a heavenly god, you can choose a planet here to refine and advance." As soon as Juon said this, many cultivators on the Heavenly Armor Star became excited. After years of cultivation, many cultivators on the Heavenly Armor Star had become demigods. However, without a planet to refine, they had been stuck in the demigod realm. Even Yuan Hongwen, Long Xiaotian, and the others, who were the first batch of demigods, hadn't made any progress. However, things were different now. Juon had brought in an entire galaxy. Their problem of lacking planets was finally solved. At the very least, there were many cultivators on the Heavenly Armor planet who had already cultivated to the demigod realm and had a chance to become heavenly gods. Long live Lord Longwen. At this moment, countless cultivators on the Heavenly Armor Star were chanting Zhuowen's name. After so many years of development, the Heavenly Armor Star had long regarded the Ryuka as their home. They had willingly become members of the Ryuka. Longwen was the supreme ruler and representative of the Ryuka. Now that Juon had brought in an entire galaxy, how could they not be happy? Juon looked at all of this with a smile. Although the Ryuka was still very weak, he knew that with Devour's protection, the Ryuka would definitely become stronger slowly. Juon, what will this galaxy be called in the future? Yuan Hongwen approached Juon and asked. Chapter 1970. Lei Qi. After dealing with the matter of the Heavenly Armor Star, Yuan traveled through the void. He planned to find a secluded place nearby to absorb the star sources he had seized from the mountain-shaking galaxy, Acacia Galaxy, and Book Ocean Galaxy. Devour had been at the peak heavenly god realm for some time. The reason he couldn't ascend to the true god realm was because he didn't have enough foundation. Now that he had 3 star sources, Juon believed that Devour should be able to ascend to the true god realm. "I'll just seclude myself here." Zhuowen's figure moved like lightning, shuttling through the starry sky. Immediately, he found a meteorite bigger than a planet floating toward him. The meteorite's shape was irregular, and its surface was bumpy with many grotesque potholes. Jun landed on the meteorite, entering the interior of the meteorite through the potholes. After using the devouring curse to seal the potholes, he took out the star sources he had obtained this time, absorbing the star sources to prepare for his breakthrough to the true god realm. The core star field of the Great Brahma domain was a vast and boundless region made up of countless star systems. Because the star systems were so densely packed, it looked like an endless blue land from afar. In the core of this star field, there were 100 great sects, and above them were the 10 great sections. The 10 great sects were the forces second only to the Tower of Hanoi, and the Tower of Hanoi was famous in the Great Brahma domain. It was a building created by the Lord of the Great Brahma domain, Great Brahma. In the Great Brahma domain, no one knew what existed in the Tower of Hanoi or what kind of god lived there. In the Great Brahma domain, only 2 people had ever entered the Tower of Hanoi. One was the founder of the Tower of Hanoi, Great Brahma, and the other was said to be the ruthless Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign of the Crepe Myrtle sect. However, when the Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign was undergoing his 20th wind disaster, there was no news of him at all. As there were many rumors, the Crepe Myrtle Star Sovereign had fallen. Thus, only Great Brahma could enter the Tower of Hanoi. In one of the 10 great sects, in a palace of the Dark Fantasy sect, Lei Qi sat condescendingly on the throne, looking down at Yin Bingyun, who was bound by lightning chains. Yin Bingyun, you originally had 100 years to enjoy it. Unfortunately, you really don't know what's good for you. You actually dared to take out the extreme fire sword from your body. Tell me who that person is. Lei Qi's cold voice reverberated in the main hall, rumbling like countless muffled thunders. Yin Bingyun was as pure as ice and as pure as jade. The illusory Rift Valley ice that surrounded her was no longer present. However, her beautiful face was incomparably pale, and her lips were dry and cracked. Her condition was not very good. Lei Qi, kill me. Since the extreme flame sword is no longer with me, then I no longer have any value to you. Why don't you just kill me? Yin Bingyun raised her head with difficulty and stared coldly at Lei Qi. Lei Qi slowly stood up, causing the entire Great Hall of Lightning to rumble. He sneered and said, "Die? You don't have the right to die. Speak, I don't have much patience." Yin Bingyun bit her lower lip and stubbornly refused to speak. It seems that you don't want to speak. Then I'll take it that you gave the extreme flame sword to your trash of a niece. When my people find your niece, I'll make her life worse than death. Even if you beg me bitterly, I won't listen, Lei Qi said indifferently. Yin Bingyun looked worried. She knew Yun Chuyu's character very well. Although she had found an excuse to send Yun Chuyu away after she returned to the Crepe Myrtle sect, she knew very well that once Yun Chuyu knew that the Crepe Myrtle sect had been destroyed by Lei Qi, she would probably be impulsive. If you tell me the whereabouts of the extreme flame sword, I can cancel the arrest warrant for your niece. Lei Qi also noticed the strange look on Yin Bingyun's face. The reason why he had destroyed the entire Crepe Myrtle galaxy was not because he was innately bloodthirsty, but because he wanted to find the extreme flame sword. Since Yin Bingyun did not have the extreme flame sword, it was very likely that she had given it to someone else. If the person who had the extreme flame sword was still in the Crepe Myrtle galaxy, he would definitely take out the extreme flame sword to block his powerful thunder, but unfortunately, after he had destroyed all the living beings in the Crepe Myrtle galaxy, he did not sense any aura of the extreme flame sword. Fortunately, the space where Zhuowen had been was inside the black hole of the Crepe Myrtle galaxy and was completely isolated from the Crepe Myrtle galaxy, so Lei Qi did not discover Zhuowen's existence. Otherwise, Yuan would have been unable to escape at that time. Yin Bingyun shook her head and said, "The extreme flame sword is not on Chuyu, so it's useless for you to find Chuyu." "Then who has it?" Lei Qi's eyes flashed as he asked in a deep voice. Yin Bingyun was silent and did not answer Lei Qi's words. "Do you think I won't dare to search your soul?" Lei Qi said gloomily. Yin Bingyun said sarcastically, "Although you are stronger than me, if I wanted to destroy my own divine soul, would you be able to stop me?" Lei Qi's face grew grave. Yin Bingyun was right. Although she had yet to become real god Extreme Fire, her consciousness had already surpassed real god and reached the level of an ordinary void sky expert. With such a strong consciousness, if he really wanted to search her soul forcefully, he would not be able to gain any benefits. After all, if Yin Bingyun were to destroy her own divine soul the moment he searched her memories, his divine soul would also suffer quite a bit of damage. The gains would not make up for the losses. Of course, if Yin Bingyun was only an ordinary real god, Lei Qi would not have to worry about searching her soul forcefully. It was a pity that Yin Bingyun was not. Just as Lei Qi was in a dilemma, his eyebrows twitched and he took out his communication jade token. His communication jade token was blinking continuously. Someone should be sending him a message. After putting away his communication jade token, Lei Qi revealed a smile. He looked at Yin Bingyun and said, Yin Bingyun's eyes turned grave, but she regained her calmness very quickly and said indifferently, I don't know this Jun. Ha! As expected, it is Zhuowen. I never thought that you would give the supreme flaming sword to a real god who is like an ant. I am curious about what you are thinking. For such an ant to have the supreme flaming sword, it is simply suicide, Lei Qi laughed. Yin Bingyun's face grew grave. She never thought that Lei Qi would find out about Jun. Regarding Zhuowen, she did not reveal anything. How did Lei Qi find out about it? Lei Qi clapped his hands gently and 5 thunder liquid condensed around the hall. The thunder liquid was like a liquid that poured down from the surroundings. After that, it started to twist and condense into human figures that were flickering with lightning. Mr. Lei Qi. The lightning receded. These 5 figures were all expressionless men wearing lightning armor. Find this person near Ziwei Galaxy and bring him back. This is Sun Hua bead. It can detect the aura of the supreme flaming sword. This bead can lead you to this person. Remember, bring him back. If necessary, you can kill him. However, you cannot touch this person's items. After Lei Qi spoke, he waved his sleeve and took out a bead that was filled with flames. He passed it to a tall and mighty man among the 5 of them. Mister, don't worry. We will definitely bring this person back. After the man finished speaking, he brought the 5 of them and disappeared from the hall. The 5 of them. Yin Bingyun's beautiful eyes were filled with shock as she stared at the 5 of them. She could feel that the aura of the thunder calamity from the 5 of them was extremely dense. It was much denser than an ordinary real god. The 5 of them were also my test subjects. It's a pity that they were too useless and couldn't pass through the 20th thunder calamity. The person with the highest score only passed through 19 while the other 4 only passed through 18. Now, they have been made into men of sacrifice by me. Although the 5 men of sacrifice were only real gods of one calamity, their fighting power was very strong. An ordinary real god of 3 calamities wasn't a match for any of them. If the 5 of them were to join forces, even a real god of 3 calamities who had passed through more than 5 wind calamities would be defeated. Lei Qi spoke faintly and his tone was filled with confidence towards the 5 men of sacrifice. Yin Bingyun cursed in her heart. She knew that Jun was very strong and he had even killed real god of 3 calamities like Song Jiahao. However, each of the 5 men of sacrifice could easily kill an expert like Song Jiahao. If the 5 of them were to join forces, no matter how strong Jun was, he wouldn't be able to survive. Looking at the worry in Yin Bingyun's beautiful eyes, Lei Qi was pleased and he smiled. This time, I will give you 100 years to get the supreme fire sword. Among my many test subjects, you should be the cultivator who has the highest chance of becoming real god of extreme fire. After saying that, Lei Qi's eyes were filled with fanaticism. At the border between Acacia Galaxy and Book Sea Galaxy, 5 thunderbolts swept over like a gale and condensed into 5 terrifying auras. Enai Buishue and Jing Shui, who were originally waiting at the border, contracted their pupils and their hearts trembled slightly. The auras of the 5 figures were so fierce that they didn't even dare to look at them directly. Real god of one calamity? What a terrifying aura of thunder calamity. How many thunder calamities have they passed? Jing Shui exclaimed softly. I'm afraid more than 15. I have seen real gods of one calamity who have passed more than 10 times. However, they aren't as terrifying as these 5, Enai Buishue said in a deep voice. As expected of Mr. Lei Qi. Even the subordinates he sent are so powerful and terrifying, Jing Shui muttered to herself with jealousy. The tall and mighty man walked over slowly and looked at the 2 of them coldly. The information was provided by the 2 of you. Then where is Zhuan? Enai Buishue and Jing Shui looked at each other and Enai Buishue said respectfully, actually, we aren't very sure. Ever since Yun took our galaxy's origin, he left. At that time, we knew that he should have gone to Mountain Shaking Galaxy. As for where he went after that, we aren't sure. The man nodded and immediately waved his sleeves. He took out 2 crystals and said, "These are 2 galaxy origin stones. They can make up for the loss of your galaxy's origin and also allow your galaxy's origin to transform further." After putting away the crystals, Enai Buishue and Jing Shui were pleasantly surprised. The galaxy origin stones were extremely precious to the masters of their galaxies. They were treasures that could strengthen their galaxies. Chapter 1971. Pursuit and encounter in the cold and dark starry sky. An incomparably huge meteorite floated quietly, like an ark on the waves. A young man in white sat cross-legged on top of the meteor. His eyes were slightly closed, his aura surging, and a powerful ring of divine power circled around him. Suddenly, the young man in white opened his eyes and raised his head to look into the distance. There, 5 bolts of lightning shot over like arrows. From afar, they looked like 5 lightning arrows. Zhuowen's gaze turned solemn. The 5 bolts of lightning were very powerful, and their target was him. Devour's clone is at the juncture of a breakthrough. I can't let these 5 disturb his breakthrough. Zhuowen muttered in a low voice. He stomped his right foot and shot into the starry sky. He drew the glorious amethyst galaxy sword in his right hand and slashed out horizontally. Purple sword light shot out like a tsunami and blocked the 5 bolts of lightning that shot over. Umph! A disdainful snort sounded. The sword light shattered, and the 5 bolts of lightning landed in front of Zhuowen, revealing 5 figures. These 5 people were all wearing armor flashing with lightning. They were tall and powerful, but their eyes were lifeless. The leader was 9 feet tall. His gaze first fell on the Sun fire bead in his hand. He found that the Sun fire bead was trembling violently, the flames on its surface surging as if it would fly out of his hand at any moment. "Looks like the extreme Dao fire sword is really on you. Then you're Zhuowen?" This person put away the Sun fire bead and looked indifferently at Zhuowen, his face expressionless. Zhuowen frowned slightly. He did not know these 5 people, but from the moment this person mentioned the extreme Dao fire sword, he had already guessed their origins. "You were sent by Lei Qi?" Zhuowen asked in a deep voice. "Looks like you know a lot. Since you know it's Lord Lei Qi, then bind yourself and come with us to the gloomy illusion sect." The leader said expressionlessly. "Sorry, I don't like to be manipulated by others." Zhuowen shook his head and suddenly unfurled the torch dragon wings on his back, fleeing away from the meteor. "You can't escape." The tall man shook his head, and then he stomped his right foot and vanished on the spot as well. Looking at the 5 people following closely behind him, Zhuowen's gaze turned gloomy. He hadn't expected them to follow him so closely. Their speed wasn't any slower than his when he activated the torch dragon wings. "Lei Long." The tall man was a little impatient, and he signaled the other 4 with his eyes. Instantly, lightning exploded, and the other 4 rushed behind the tall man, lightning surging out from their bodies. The thunderbolts on the 5 of them were not god power, but thunder calamity power. The thunder calamity aura on the 5 of them was much stronger than the other true gods. They were terrifying existences that had experienced at least 15 thunder calamities. The 5 people wrapped in lightning were like the nodes of a thunder dragon. They combined together and turned into a giant thunder dragon that was filled with the terrifying aura of thunder calamity. As soon as the thunder dragon was formed, its speed increased by a few times. It was as though it had teleported, and it appeared not far behind Zhuowen. It opened its mouth to devour, and terrifying lightning exploded, radiating in all directions. Bang! Zhuowen groaned, and his body was affected by the lightning. He felt numb many times, and the torch dragon wings on his back didn't listen to his command, flapping irregularly. Fortunately, Zhuowen retracted his torch dragon wings and slashed out over 100 times with his glorious purple galaxy sword in an instant. Dense sword lights filled the space before Zhuowen, forming a purple wall of sword lights in an attempt to block the incoming lightning. Bang! The sword light wall only blocked for 3 breaths of time, and then it collapsed. However, it was during these 3 breaths of time that Zhuowen unfurled his torch dragon wings again. He placed his hands by his side, and like a shuttle, he plunged forward. He's quite fast at escaping. On the head of the Thunder Dragon, the tall man's eyes were cold. He immediately controlled the huge Thunder Dragon to continue chasing Juan. At this moment, Juan was no longer careless. He began to use the power of Tao Will, attaching it to the Torch Dragon wings, causing its speed to continuously increase. However, Juan also discovered that as his speed increased, the Thunder Dragon behind him also increased. It was as if the Thunder Dragon hadn't completely awakened before and was now slowly waking up. Once it completely woke up, it would become extremely terrifying and abnormal. The man and the dragon were extremely fast. They instantly cut through the starry sky, passing through one star system after another. The terrifying roar of the dragon spread in the starry sky, causing fear to rise in people's hearts. At this moment, countless experts in the star systems they passed by looked up at the sky, watching the huge thunder dragon chasing the figure of a white-robed youth. Especially when they felt the dense and terrifying aura of thunder calamity from the thunder dragon, many experts avoided it, not daring to get close to it. At the same time, many divine consciousnesses were extended into the starry sky. Many experts wanted to see who exactly the white-robed youth who was being chased by the terrifying thunder dragon was. However, when they discovered that the young man being chased was a true god of knowledge one disaster, many experts revealed looks of surprise. What's that white-robed youth doing? He actually stopped. Could it be that he wants to fight against the thunder dragon? It should be. That thunder dragon is very terrifying. I discovered that there are 5 true gods in the thunder dragon. Moreover, the aura of thunder calamity from the 5 true gods is too terrifying. They've experienced at least 15 thunder calamities. Especially the cultivator in front of the dragon, he might have experienced 18 thunder calamities. What? That's so terrifying. Such a lineup can completely kill an ordinary 3 disasters true god in an instant. Where did the 5 cultivators in the Thunder Dragon come from? The experts in the star systems nearby extended their divine consciousnesses with great interest, probing the confrontation between the Thunder Dragon and the white-robed youth in the starry sky. Of course, most of the cultivators thought that the white-robed youth was courting death. In the face of such a terrifying Thunder Dragon, a one-disaster true god was simply courting death. It's Yun. I didn't expect to meet this guy here. It's really a fruitless search. Far away from the Thunder Dragon in the starry sky, there were 2 figures standing there quietly. One of them was an old man in a green robe. Beside the old man, there was a young lady with a charming expression. Grandfather, there's no need for us to provoke Zhuan, right? I have a feeling that this guy isn't simple. The charming lady's eyes were filled with complexity as she muttered softly. The old man in a green robe waved his hand and said, Hong Shan, you don't understand at all. This guy is so weak. What right does he have to possess the fire spirit juice and the dark yellow mineral vein? It's simply a waste for this guy to possess them. Why don't we take them and leave them in our Jiang Hong Trading Company? We're quite lucky this time. We found Zhuan 1 step ahead of Luo Pengfei. This time, this guy's items will belong to our Jiang Hong Trading Company. Zhuan wasn't unfamiliar with the 2 of them. They were Wu Han and Hong Shan from the Brahma Terminus Star Jiang Hong Trading Company. Ever since Zhuan escaped from the joint forces of Wu Han and Luo Pengfei, Wu Han and Luo Pengfei had sent out their own forces to search for Zhuan's traces. Wu Han and Luo Pengfei even went out to search for him personally. Although they were shocked when they found out that Zhuan had killed Song Jiahao, they didn't give up on searching for Zhuan because of that. They were clear that this guy definitely had a great encounter for him to possess such terrifying power. On top of that, he had casually taken out so much fire spirit juice. Hence, they guessed that this guy was extremely wealthy. As long as they could find this guy, their trading company could be upgraded to a higher level and suppress the other 2 trading companies. But Hong Shan's eyes flickered. When Wu Han returned, she didn't hide Zhuan's matter from Wu Han. Originally, Hong Shan wanted Wu Han to recruit Zhuan. However, she didn't expect that she would fall out with Zhuan in the end. Now, Wu Han seemed to be possessed by the devil and didn't listen to her advice at all. Although Zhuan had imprisoned her, he had kept his promise and let her go in the end. This made Hong Shan have a good impression of Zhuan. However, she didn't expect that things would turn out like this. No buts. This old man must take down this guy. You don't need to say anything more. Wu Han flicked his sleeve with slight displeasure and then flashed explosively toward Zhuowen. Although the Thunder Dragon was powerful, Wu Han was a first-step Void Sky expert. He wasn't afraid of it. Zhuowen's face was gloomy. He wanted to take the Thunder Dragon away from the place where Devour's clone was breaking through. He didn't expect to meet someone he didn't want to meet here. Wu Han, that old man, actually left the border area. He's really like a lingering ghost. Zhuowen's eyes were gloomy. The Brahma Fiend Star was located at the border of the Great Brahma territory. Normally, Wu Han wouldn't leave the Brahma Fiend Star unless he had something important to do. However, he had appeared here. He was afraid that Wu Han's target was Zhuan. You can't escape. The Thunder Dragon gazed at Zhuan coldly, the corners of his mouth filled with coldness. Can't escape? You think too much. The reason why I led you here is that I have a helper. Zhuan curled the corners of his mouth. Then he looked at Wu Han in the distance. Wu Han was slowly approaching Zhuan. Wu Han, who was flying toward Zhuowen, suddenly heard Zhuowen's voice in his head. Senior Wu Han, I still have 10 barrels of fire spirit juice and 70,000 feet of mysterious yellow mineral vein. If you help me defeat the Thunder Dragon, these rewards will be yours. Wu Han was stunned. Then he sneered coldly and said, I know you still have a lot of things. You're asking for too little. If you don't want to die, give me all your spirit rings. Then this old man may spare your life. As soon as Wu Han said that, Zhuan revealed a smile. He had been waiting for Wu Han to say that. The Thunder Dragon, who was confronting Zhuowen, suddenly turned to Wu Han. The tall man stared at Wu Han coldly and said, You dare to ask for all of this kid's things? You're really bold. Wu Han's eyes focused as he said indifferently, You're just 5-1 disaster true gods. Even if you've survived many lightning disasters, how can you be Su Tian's opponent? If you don't want to die, get out of here. Otherwise, you'll regret it later. Chapter 1972. Heavenly Thunder. Wu Han thought he had misheard. He had seen arrogant people before, but he had never seen such arrogant people. The 5 people in front of him were merely 1 calamity true gods, but they dared to call him, Wu Han, a void sky trash. How could they be so arrogant? At this moment, Wu Han's heart was burning with rage, but he didn't lose his mind. He waved his sleeve and took out a golden hoop, which he threw at Zhuan. A terrifying golden light burst out from the center of the golden hoop, which then turned into a golden pillar, trapping Zhuowen inside. Zhuowen didn't resist, but looked coldly at Wu Han and Lei Long. He knew he had achieved his goal. The golden hoop Wu Han took out wasn't simple. It was probably a top-grade true god weapon. Even Zhuowen wouldn't be able to break it easily. However, Yun didn't care, because Devour's clone was at the critical moment of breaking through. Once Devour broke through to the true god realm, his fighting strength would be earth-shattering. Even if he wasn't as strong as Wu Han wouldn't be able to kill Devour's clone. As for this insignificant golden hoop, it wouldn't be able to trap Zhuowen at that time. Hong Shan, look after this kid. Today, this old man will teach these 5 guys who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth a good lesson. Do you really think you can be so arrogant after surviving a dozen lightning disasters? A 1 calamity true god is still a 1 calamity true god, not the legendary extreme thunder true god. How dare you be so arrogant? Wu Han was obviously angry. He was a void sky expert, a peak expert on the Brahma Fiend Star. Wherever he went, people would be respectful to him. Who dared to insult him? Then, Wu Han took out a long stick with spikes on its surface. Without saying a word, he pounced on Lei Long. Lei Long wasn't willing to be outdone. He swung his tail, raising a huge amount of lightning liquid, which then flowed backwards, instantly engulfing Wu Han. In just an instant, Wu Han and Lei Long collided. The terrifying sound of an explosion lingered in everyone's ears. Terrifying divine power overflowed in all directions, as if the entire starry sky was going to explode. The surrounding divine senses all shrank back in fear, and the rulers of the nearby galaxies moved their galaxies away from the terrifying battlefield, trembling in fear. Sequoia controlled the golden hoop and flew far away from the battlefield before stopping. She then looked at Zhuan with a complicated expression and said guiltily, I'm sorry, Zhuan's lips curled into a cold smile, but he didn't answer. Or rather, he couldn't be bothered to answer. Although he hadn't spent much time with Sequoia, he felt that Sequoia was a trustworthy person. Unfortunately, what happened next disappointed Zhuan. He knew that Wu Han wouldn't find him for no reason and attack him. Sequoia must have said something to Wu Han that shouldn't have. Seeing Zhuan's cold expression, Hong Shan's face turned pale. She bit her lower lip but didn't say anything. She knew that anything she said now would be useless. And what is the origin of that Lei Long? Why are you being chased by that Lei Long? Sequoia asked again. Zhuan sneered, then why are you and Wu Han chasing me? To me, you are just jackals of the same tribe. Sequoia's face turned pale again. In the end, she sighed and said nothing. Wu Han and Lei Long's battle became more and more intense, and the scope of the battle became wider and wider. More and more galaxies in the surroundings had no choice but to retreat. Wu Han even used the illusory sky bridge in his body, and his battle strength rose to a terrifying level. Wu Han swung the iron rod in his hand. With one swing of the rod, the surrounding space began to collapse. These collapses formed rings that were densely packed in the surroundings. It was a terrifying sight to behold. Bang, bang, bang. The dense collapse of the starry sky formed waves of pressure that poured down on Lei Long's body, causing Lei Long to let out a roar and involuntarily be forced to retreat. Die for me! Wu Han snorted coldly. He held the long rod and rushed in front of Lei Long. He raised the iron rod above his head and smashed it down. The iron rod stirred up a terrifying and violent energy. When the rod fell, it was like a stone falling into water. At the tip of the iron rod, layers of ring-shaped space collapses formed one after another. Lei Long was in the center of these collapses, and he continued to roar and howl. Thunderstorm. On Lei Long's head, the tall man formed a strange seal with both hands. The four men at the back of Lei Long's head exploded, and the huge Lei Long collapsed. The bodies of the four exploded men turned into liquid lightning that entered the tall man's body. The liquid lightning began to wriggle and change, and in the end, the tall man grew taller and taller. In an instant he was 10,000 feet tall. The tall man clenched his right hand, and the liquid lightning condensed in his right palm, forming a slender lightning blade. Rumble! The tall man's blade slashed at the iron rod, and the space collapses created by the iron rod were completely annihilated by the blade. Wu Han's face was gloomy as he retreated. I really didn't expect this guy to have such a trump card. However, I can't drag on like this. I have to deal with him as soon as possible and take away Zhuan. Wu Han was anxious. He was sure that the battle here had caused such a big commotion that it might attract Luo Pengfei. After all, Luo Pengfei had left the Brahma Fiend Star and left the border. He really didn't want to encounter Luo Pengfei. Soul-extinguishing rod. Thinking of this, Wu Han swung the iron rod in his right hand. Although this strike of Wu Han's looked ordinary, when the strike was unleashed, it actually had the feeling of breaking one's heart. Bang! The rod smashed down, and the huge lightning man was sent flying. His chest caved in. However, the lightning man wasn't weak. The moment the iron rod smashed down, the lightning man held a sword in his right hand and slashed in front of Wu Han. Fortunately, Wu Han dodged in time, and a deep wound appeared on his abdomen. Blood spurted out. Wu Han's face changed. He looked at the lightning man ferociously. He didn't expect a true god to be so strong, especially when the lightning man had fused with 5 true gods. His strength was comparable to Void Sky Yi Deng. Inside the golden hoop, Zhuowen's pupils shrank as he looked at the scene. The lightning man's fighting strength made even him shudder. At the same time, he was even more afraid of Lei Qi. Just the subordinates she sent were so terrifying. If Lei Qi came personally, wouldn't Zhuowen be seeking his own death? Bang, bang, bang. Wu Han and the lightning man fought again. This time, The two of them were exchanging injury for injury, exchanging life for life. They didn't hold back at all. Every time they collided, they left terrifying wounds on their bodies. Zhuan looked at the scene silently. Meanwhile, outside the golden hoop, Hong Shan's beautiful eyes were filled with worry. Even she didn't expect the lightning man to be so strong. She started to worry about Wu Han. At this moment, light flashed in Zhuan's eyes. He looked happy. Devour's clone, who was hiding in the asteroid, had finally broken through to the true God realm. In the starry sky far away from the battlefield, a massive asteroid exploded, turning into pieces of rock. The black-clothed Zhuan slowly walked out. An earth-shaking beast roar burst out from the black-clothed Zhuan's body. His roar was filled with joy and joy. After breaking through to the true God realm, Devour's other innate ability has finally been developed. The black-clothed Zhuan muttered. The heaven-devouring eye in his glabella began to crack. The pitch-black pupil changed, turning into the shape of purple-black lightning. After Devour had broken through to the true God realm, his new innate ability had transformed the heaven-devouring eye into the heavenly thunder eye. The heavenly thunder eye had transformed the purple-black lightning in the heaven-devouring eye into a fine lightning energy. This lightning energy was called the heaven lightning. In Devour's inherited memories, the heaven lightning was extremely terrifying. It was said that there was nothing that couldn't be destroyed. Anything touched by the heaven lightning would be destroyed by the terrifying power of the heaven lightning. Moreover, this kind of destruction couldn't be regenerated. Even if one was a void sky expert, if the heaven lightning struck them directly, their wounds wouldn't heal easily. It was because of this terrifying heaven lightning that many cultivators in the heaven domain were afraid of Devour. Even void sky experts were afraid of this kind of heaven lightning energy. However, Devour's clone had just broken through to the true God realm, and the heavenly thunder eye had just transformed. Thus, there was only a trace of heaven lightning left. Moreover, the more heaven lightning was used, the less there would be left. In other words, the trace of heaven lightning in Zhuan's heavenly thunder eye could only attack once. It's time to take a look at the main body. The black-clothed Zhuan's eyes were filled with soaring killing intent as he rushed in the direction where the main body was trapped. Now that Devour's clone had broken through to the true God realm, coupled with his two great innate gifts, Wu Han might not be able to kill him even if he was at his peak. Moreover, Wu Han was exhausted from the battle with the Lightning Man and was seriously injured. Therefore, the black-clothed Zhuan was even more fearless. At this moment, the battle between Wu Han and the Lightning Man had reached its climax. The place where the two of them were standing was filled with endless astral winds. Both Wu Han and the Lightning Man were riddled with scars, especially the Lightning Man. His body was covered with cuts and bruises, and his aura was weak. On the other hand, Wu Han was much better. However, he was only slightly better than the Lightning Man. His condition wasn't optimistic at all. You will regret it. How dare you obstruct my phantom sex, Lord Lei Qi? You're dead. The Lightning Man's eyes were ferocious. Shortly after, he stomped his right foot and retreated, fleeing into the distance. Phantom sex Lei Qi? Wu Han was startled and his heart trembled. He hadn't expected that the Lightning Man was Lei Qi's subordinate. If he had known, he definitely wouldn't have dared to fight him. I can't let him escape. Otherwise, the Jiang Hong Trading Company and I will be finished. Wu Han's eyes were filled with killing intent. Naturally, he had heard of Lei Qi's name. With his and the Jiang Hong Trading Company's power, they were just ants in Lei Qi's eyes. Once the Lightning Man escaped and reported back, with Lei Qi's character, the Jiang Hong Trading Company would be finished. Thinking of this, Wu Han spat out a mouthful of blood essence on the iron rod. At the same time, he frantically absorbed the energy of the illusory sky bridge that was released. Soul-extinguishing rod. Wu Han used the same rod as before. However, the rod he used now was much more terrifying than before. The rod seemed to be able to destroy anything. Chapter 1973. Battle of the Gods. A blood-curdling scream resounded in the starry space. The enormous Lightning Man was smashed into smithereens by the soul-extinguishing rod, scattering into countless droplets of lightning liquid. Wu Han's face was pale, and his footsteps were weak. He had used up all of his blood essence to execute this move, and it was within his expectations that the Lightning Man would be killed. Exhaling softly, Wu Han glared at Zhuan, who was trapped in the golden hoop not far away. He was sure that Zhuan knew about the Lightning Man's origin, but he hadn't said a word since the beginning. Wu Han even suspected that Zhuan had purposely lured the Lightning Man here. Recalling that he had killed Lei Qi's subordinate, Wu Han felt a wave of lingering fear, but more than that he was filled with anger. "Then you've angered me. Do you really think I don't dare to kill you? Let me ask you, is that Lightning Man really Lei Qi's subordinate?" Wu Han stopped in front of the golden hoop, staring coldly at Zhuan, who was trapped inside. Hong Shan also noticed that something was amiss, but she didn't interrupt. She merely watched in silence. "That's right. That Lightning Man is indeed Lei Qi's subordinate. What do you think will happen to you and the Jianghong Trading Company if Lei Qi finds out that you killed Lei Qi's subordinate?" Zhuan sneered. "You're courting death." Wu Han was enraged, and he undid the golden hoop's restraints. God Force surged out from his right hand as he grabbed at Zhuan, wanting to pull him in front of him. Zhuan felt a powerful pressure pressing down on his body, making it difficult for him to move. However, Zhuan didn't show any signs of fear. Instead, he sneered. Wu Han naturally saw the expression on Zhuan's face, and his heart skipped a beat. An ominous feeling rose in his heart. Suddenly, a terrifying sonic boom came from behind Wu Han. Then, Wu Han realized that his movements had become sluggish. Countless purgatory spirits had appeared around him out of nowhere. These refined souls were like tough ropes, tightly binding Wu Han's limbs, causing his movements to become sluggish. Just as Wu Han's movements became sluggish, the pressure on Zhuan's body also paused. Zhuan immediately released the Thunderfire Sword. The Thunderfire Sword spewed out terrifying black flames and charged towards Wu Han's forehead. Wu Han's pupils constricted. He let out a low roar and summoned the illusory heavenly bridge. An enormous illusory bridge that seemed to connect the heavens and earth appeared behind Wu Han. Terrifying energy condensed on the illusory bridge, immediately obliterating the surrounding refined souls. At the same time, Wu Han broke free from his restraints. Scram! Wu Han held the iron rod in his hand and suddenly swung it out, smashing heavily onto the Thunderfire Sword. With a clang, the Thunderfire Sword was sent flying, but Wu Han was also forced back more than 10 steps by the powerful attack of the Thunderfire Sword, which triggered the injuries in his body. He couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. God damn it, this old bastard's strength is not bad. Even with such serious injuries, he can still display such powerful strength. Today I will kill you. The moment the Thunderfire Sword was sent flying, Xiao He appeared on the sword's hilt. She then controlled the Thunderfire Sword to make a turn and continue to charge towards Wu Han. Little fire, little blood. Go. Chop him up. The moment the Thunderfire Sword charged again, she immediately summoned the Supreme Fire Sword and the Blood Immortal Sword. Once the Blood Immortal Sword was summoned, it roared loudly, as if to boost its courage. At the same time, it silently followed behind the Supreme Fire Sword. The Blood Immortal had cultivated until now, but she was only a low-grade true god weapon. Moreover, the material of her body was much weaker than the Thunderfire Sword. In addition, the Blood Immortal was afraid of death, so she wouldn't charge at the front. Bang bang. The Supreme Fire Sword's power was extremely terrifying. The moment it hit Wu Han's iron rod, the extreme flames followed the iron rod and spread to Wu Han's arm, almost burning Wu Han's arm to ashes. Soul-extinguishing rod. Wu Han used the rod again and then swung it fiercely. Instantly, the Supreme Fire Sword was blown back. His hands were trembling and his face was even paler and weaker. At this moment, the white-clothed Zhuan had already taken advantage of the gap between Wu Han's retreat and swept towards Wu Han's empty space. He slashed out with the glorious purple galaxy divine sword, and a purple moon rose. Together with the amplification of the fifth Tao meaning, it slashed out heavily. Wu Han was both shocked and furious. Zhuan's attack was too timely. Even he couldn't react in time. In desperation, Wu Han could only clench his left hand into a fist and violently hit the purple moon. Puchi. With a spurt of blood, Wu Han retreated dozens of steps again. Then, half of Wu Han's left fist was chopped off, and blood kept dripping. I won't kill you today. I will take your surname. This series of passive beatings caused Wu Han to feel exceptionally furious in his heart. Many of the surrounding experts who were paying attention to this battle were indescribably shocked. Although Wu Han had been severely injured in the battle with the Lightning Man, he was still a Void Sky expert. As the saying went, a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. A severely injured Void Sky expert wasn't someone a First Calamity True God could contend against. However, the young man in front of them had suddenly erupted with combat strength and forced Wu Han into such a sorry state. This was unimaginable to the masses. Wu Han frantically mobilized the power of the illusory sky bridge. The illusory sky bridge that spanned across the starry sky became even more resplendent and colorful. Even from afar, one could feel the terrifying energy surging out of the illusory sky bridge. At the same time, the injury on Wu Han's left fist gradually healed. The white-clothed Zhuan calmly fought and swung the glorious purple galaxy divine sword. An illusory sky bridge that wasn't any weaker than Wu Han's appeared in the void behind him. Wu Han, who was frantically mobilizing the power of the illusory sky bridge with the intention of killing Zhuan, froze on the spot when he saw the illusory sky bridge behind Zhuan. Illusory sky bridge? You're a Void Sky cultivator? Wu Han subconsciously exclaimed. Sorry, I'm not. Zhuan's eyes lit up. He hadn't released the illusory sky bridge to fight but to intimidate Wu Han. He had been waiting for Wu Han to be stunned for a moment. The black-clothed Zhuan, who had been hiding in the dark, quietly appeared behind Wu Han and punched Wu Han's back. The surface of this punch was wrapped in traces of black thunderbolts. These thunderbolts weren't ordinary thunderbolts, but the sky thunder of the devoured doppelganger's second innate talent, the sky thunder eye. Now, the black-clothed Zhuan only had this trace of heavenly lightning on him, so he only had one chance to strike. Bang! A terrifying force set off an ear-piercing explosion in the starry sky. Then, the fist wrapped in sky thunder landed on Wu Han's back. Wu Han had already discovered the black-clothed Zhuan the moment he appeared. However, the black-clothed Zhuan's movements were too fast. It was obvious that this punch had been prepared long ago. Wu Han could only watch as the black-clothed Zhuan's fist landed on his back. However, although Wu Han couldn't dodge this punch, he instantly mobilized the power of the illusory sky bridge to form a disorderly and picturesque defense layer that resembled a spider web. Wu Han was confident that this defense layer was the power of the illusory sky bridge. A mere calamity true god wouldn't be able to destroy it. However, the strange thing was that the moment this punch came into contact with the defense layer, the spiderweb-like defense layer instantly collapsed and the punch landed heavily on Wu Han's back. What kind of thunderbolt is this? When this punch landed on Wu Han's back, the thunderbolts wrapped around the fist instantly drilled into Wu Han's body like worms. His heart was instantly destroyed by the thunderbolts. The thunderbolts didn't stop there. They spread through Wu Han's heart toward his internal organs. They were so fast that even he couldn't react in time. Wherever the thunderbolts passed, his internal organs couldn't escape the fate of being crushed. Damn it! Wu Han was shocked. He immediately withdrew the illusory sky bridge into his body and used the powerful energy of the illusory sky bridge to block the thunderbolts that were wreaking havoc in his body. Even so, the illusory sky bridge was barely able to block it. At this moment, Wu Han's face was ashen. He didn't expect the thunderbolts released by Zhuan to be so terrifying. If he had known, he definitely wouldn't have only set up a defense layer. Even if he was seriously injured, he wouldn't have let the punch touch his body and allowed the thunderbolts to enter his inner world. At the same time, the white-clothed Zhuan had already arrived in front of Wu Han. The glorious purple galaxy divine sword landed on Wu Han's waist mercilessly. Wu Han spat out a mouthful of blood. His internal organs were in a mess as he was sent flying. The moment Wu Han was sent flying, The Thunder Fire Sword shot out extremely quickly and chopped off Wu Han's right hand. He took the spirit ring and shamelessly burned Wu Han's right hand into ashes. He scolded, "Old bastard's hand stinks. It's better to burn it. Let's go." Wu Han spat out this word with difficulty. He immediately waved his sleeve and took away the dazed Hong Shan and fled into the distance. Wu Han's current state was too bad. First, he was seriously injured by the Lightning Man. Then, the black-clothed Zhuowen's thunderbolts drilled into his body. His internal organs were in intense pain as if they were burning. If Wu Han hadn't used the illusory Sky Bridge's energy to suppress the black thunderbolts, his internal organs would have been burned to ashes. Zhuon silently watched Wu Han and Hong Shan burn their blood essence and quickly flee. He didn't continue to chase after them. Wu Han's speed was too fast. Even if he chased after him, it would be difficult for him to catch up. Moreover, he released the terrifying thunderbolts inside Wu Han's body. Even if he didn't die, it would be very troublesome. In addition, Wu Han's spirit ring was taken by Xiao He, so he didn't plan to chase after them. After putting away the black-clothed Zhuowen and the Thunder Fire Sword, Yun also left this place. The commotion here was too big. He was afraid that it had attracted the attention of some nearby illusory sky experts. Naturally, Yuan didn't dare to stay here for long. Not long after Zhuon left, a middle-aged man appeared in this starry sky. This person had a gloomy gaze, an aquiline nose, and a ruthless expression. It's that old bastard Wu Han's aura. It seems that old bastard Wu Han had a great battle with some illusory sky expert here. I wonder who that old bastard Wu Han's opponent was? The middle-aged man scanned the surroundings with his divine sense and then quietly left this place. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.